What is up, fight fans? We are live on MMA Weekly, the most trusted source of news and entertainment in mixed martial arts for almost 20 years. For UFC Fight Night, Brunson versus Till. I'm Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease. We got Jeff Cain back in the building after a week off. Jeff, it's good to have you back, my friend. And we have got a pivotal, huge fight in the middleweight division headlining today, along with the debut, the successful debut that just finished up of Paddy Pimblett, who a lot of people have been waiting to see in the octagon. He gets a finish and doesn't disappoint. We'll get into that as well. But Brunson and Till, a big matchup at the top of the middleweight division. Will Darren Till be a contender at middleweight? Will Derek Brunson eventually get that long, circuitous route to pay off with a title shot? We'll get some answers to those questions today and more as we go live here on MMA Weekly. Hit us up in the chat, in the YouTube. Subscribe, hit that bell, and you know the deal, guys. It's a midday holiday weekend matinee version of UFC Fight Night Live, Jeff, on MMA Weekly.
Yeah, mid-afternoon holiday weekend fight card. Yeah, the top of the fight card has a huge middleweight fight. It's got a meaningful heavyweight fight, and then it's got a couple of fights that people need wins. And then you had the debut of Paddy, who lived up to at least the hype. I'm looking at him right now, man, and he kind of reminds me of like one of those 60s, like a John Bonham haircut and stuff. He looks like some guy that was in like the Animals or something.
Hey, we're the monkeys. Or like the guy from Notting Hill, the crazy friend in the friend group from Notting Hill. Or like if Shaggy Doo came to life and had that accent. Now, we know he's called out Conor McGregor. He's talked a lot of trash, but Luigi Vendramini, Jeff, almost finished Paddy Pimblett. He came very close to having all those words and everything he's saying shoved right down his throat, but he was able to absorb the punishment, showed his chin, showed his resilience, and then he gets the finish at 4 minutes, 25 seconds by knockout in round number one. Modestas Bukauskas and Khalil Rountree Jr. coming up next, but Paddy Pimblett with a successful debut. And Jeff, we talked about Brunson and Till. I want to get right into that because Darren Till obviously got pushed really hard, really fast by the UFC. They threw everybody they could at Tyron Woodley trying to get the belt away from him, and he finished Darren Till, and that sort of set Till on a backward track. Now, he fought Jorge Masvidal, and Darren Till, a lot of people don't realize this, Darren Till was the beginning of Masvidal's run in 2019. It was early in the year when Masvidal finished Darren Till, and that was when Masvidal hit Leon Edwards with a three-piece in the soda backstage after that fight. But Darren Till was winning that fight against Masvidal, and then as soon as that happened, you know, his career sort of went downhill. He picked up a win over Kelvin Gastelum when he moved up to middleweight, but losing back-to-back to Woodley and Masvidal pushed Till out of the welterweight division. He ends up at middleweight where he beats Gastelum, gets a fight with Robert Whittaker right away, actually knocked down Robert Whittaker with a brutal elbow in that fight, but Whittaker won it by unanimous decision, and now he gets Derek Brunson. And when I look at Derek Brunson, Jeff, he's the guy, kind of like Glover Teixeira at light heavyweight. We never thought Glover Teixeira was going to get another title shot, but he took the long way back. There's a song, Take the Long Way Home. He took the long way home to get a title shot. It's coming up against Jan Blachowicz, but when you look at Derek Brunson, everybody wants to keep counting him out. You know, when he loses to Jacare and Israel Adesanya back-to-back, Brunson slides down in the rankings, but all he does is slowly piece his career back together. Wins over Elias Theodorou, Ian Heinisch, Edmund Shabazian, and then Kevin Holland have put him in a position to be at the top of the rankings again, or near the top of the rankings, with a shot to beat Darren Till, with the winner of this fight moving on up in the rankings. Marvin Vettori's still there, Paulo Costa's still there, and we talked last week when you were out about the top of the division with Whittaker and Izzy fighting each other, and that one we don't have a date on yet. But when you look at what's happening in the middleweight division, you've got Vettori, you've got Jared Cannonier after the win over Gastelum, you've got Costa, Brunson looking to put his name in that hat with that group of fighters with a win today, and same with Darren Till.
Yeah, I mean, Brunson's on a nice win streak. Till needs a win. He needs a win tonight. And I know that his losses are to good fighters, and Kelvin's a solid fighter. That was a split decision, though, with Kelvin. And so I think that Brunson's the more proven fighter, or definitely the more proven middleweight. We're going to see, though, Darren Till's very athletic. He moves a lot, so he creates different angles. You know, and you've seen that in other fights. That's how he was able to knock down, you know, Whittaker and stuff. He's not an easy out, but he doesn't have a lot of marquee wins. And so in a lot of ways, I feel like there's a ton of pressure on Darren Till tonight, although he doesn't act like it. He never acts like it. But I feel like there's a ton of pressure on him. And then Brunson as well. You know, he's on a nice little win streak. He has to have a win tonight to be in that conversation with the top of that division. And the top of that division's shaking out. And so this fight is more meaningful than maybe it seems, you know, to us right now. Because once Whitaker and Izzy fights, you know, everybody else is going to start getting those title shots. Unless Whitaker beats Izzy, and then we're all held up again.
Yeah, but that division's jammed up at the top. You're right, Jeff. I mean, some divisions you have a clear-cut path to a title, and you have definite fights that need to be made, and you know who's there as the number 1 or number 2 contender. But at middleweight, you know, I mean, you could make a case for Paulo Costa, although he's making it tougher and tougher to do that. You can make a case for Cannonier. I mean, it really is something where any of those guys could say, hey, I have a claim. But when you look at Brunson's body of work, he's lost twice to Jacare, once in Strikeforce. And he's lost to, when you look at Yoel Romero, and that's a long time ago, but he lost to Whitaker and Anderson back-to-back. But the Silva fight, you got to remember, UFC 208,
he won.
He beat Anderson Silva. That was a robbery. So Whitaker and Silva, and then Jacare and Izzy. He's like Ryan Bader was at light heavyweight before Bader went to Bellator. He beat everyone in the division and everyone in the world except the top 3 or 4 guys. And to me, that's been Brunson so far. But Darren Till's a different kind of animal, and this is a great matchup for Till to prove what he's got at middleweight too, because Brunson is a dirty fighter, and I don't mean dirty in terms of breaking the rules. I mean, he gets in your face. He's pushing you against the cage. He's throwing elbows. He's throwing knees, but he's a wrestler at heart. So for Darren Till, who's a striker, to get in there with a wrestler like him is a fight that he has to win at the top of that division. And Brunson's a guy, you know, I hate to use a cliche, but you bring your lunch pail when you fight him. It's going to be a long night. You're going to get worked. You're going to need to fend off takedowns. You might need to get up a couple of times from takedowns. You're going to need to push yourself off the cage. He's not going to get in there, at least I don't think. We've seen crazy stuff happen, but I don't think there's any way Brunson gets in there and tries to strike with Darren Till, who's extremely dangerous on the feet. But for Till, he's got to beat this kind of fighter to make his way to the top of the division. And he thinks that he could have beaten Whitaker. He also, and I would love to see this fight, maybe out of any fight in the whole entire division at the top, would be Till versus Izzy. But he's got to start with a win over the dangerous and really just grinder and just dirty and in your face and trying to beat you up and smother you all night in Brunson.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to fight Brunson, man. I mean, look how bad he made Kevin Holland look. I mean, when you lose to Brunson, you look bad. Like you don't even deserve to be in there. That's the problem with Brunson. Brunson is not going to strike with Till early in this fight. Maybe in the late second round or third round, he'll start letting his hands go and stuff. But the blueprint, this is a stylistic matchup that we've seen play out, right? It's a striker. It's about distance. Brunson wants to close that distance, not give Till any space at all, and then just grind his way to a decision win or maybe a TKO on the ground. Where Till, the good thing for Till is he has great movement. He's fast on his feet and he moves laterally. He doesn't stand in front of you all that often. And so that's going to pose some difficulties for Brunson. This is a great stylistic matchup. I feel like Brunson has the better body of work and the more proven. But then that Gastelum fight jumps out at me because you know how tough of an out Gastelum is, you know? And so I don't knock Till. He's a very talented fighter. I just feel like he has more to prove tonight than Brunson, because Brunson's, like you said, he's beaten everybody who's anybody in the division except for the top people. And Till's that guy who's beaten one of the guys who's in the mix, but he hasn't beaten anybody else. And so this is a huge night. This could be Till's coming out party in the middleweight division, in my opinion, only because he lost the Whitaker fight. He looked good in that fight for a minute, you know, and Whitaker's hard to look good against. But yeah, man, that's a meaningful matchup. And like I said, I think it's going to be more meaningful the more we move away from this fight. If Brunson wins tonight, and then once the Whitaker and Izzy fight happens, and we've already seen the Gastelum lose that last fight, that division's kind of clearing up where the top is becoming a little less murky. But unless Whitaker wins, if Whitaker beats Izzy, then we got a trilogy, and that whole division is back on backlog.
Yeah, you're right. And the most impressive thing I've seen Till do, and look, he missed weight for the fight, but he outstruck Wonderboy. You outstrike Wonderboy, you're a great striker. And he beat Stephen Thompson legitimately by unanimous decision. He knocked out Cowboy Cerrone when Cowboy still had a little bit left in the tank in terms of being a top-tier fighter. Then the loss to Woodley, where Woodley just manhandled him and put him in that Darce choke. And that's something where, Till always had trouble making weight at 170, and he wasn't at his best. So he felt like moving up to middleweight, he looks a lot better. He seems a lot stronger at middleweight than he ever did at welterweight. And the fight against Kelvin Gastelum was very impressive. Kelvin didn't get a lot going offensively in that fight. Till fought the fight he needed to fight to win. But I thought he was more impressive in the Whitaker fight. Even though he lost by unanimous decision, he stood there and traded with Bobby Knuckles the whole fight. And that's not something most people want to do. But Darren Till, with a couple things here and there in that fight, could have picked up the win. I think he can fight and hold his own with anybody in the division. I think the Izzy fight or the Cannonier fight, those are good matchups for him, for Darren Till. But he's got to get through a guy like Brunson, like you talked about. He's got to get through that wrestling style. If Brunson smothers him, takes him down, beats him up, it could be a long night for Till. But if Till passes this test, and I tend to think he will, and he's able to finish Brunson, knock him out, get a TKO, that's going to be something that gets everybody's attention. And when you start looking at the top of the rankings of this division, you've got Vettori, who's coming off a loss. And if I'm Dana White in the UFC right now, I'm sending him to media school before I put him back in another big fight, because he thoroughly embarrassed himself, and everybody in the world was embarrassed because of his performance and the way that he behaved in the press conferences and the way that he sounded and the way that he looked. It's going to make the whole world hate him. Against Izzy, he did not do himself any favors on the mic. He came across terribly, in my opinion. So he needs some work in that. So I'm not putting him in a big fight anytime soon. I'm definitely not, and I love Paulo, but I'm not putting Costa in a big fight anytime soon. He came out and complained about his contract. He said he was drunk for the Izzy fight. He pulled out of his last fight against Whitaker, and Kelvin stepped in. So I'm not giving Costa, I'm not rewarding that right now. So Vettori and Costa, in my opinion, will get leapfrogged by whoever wins this fight. And I'm surprised in the rankings, Cannonier is still behind Paulo. I would love to see Cannonier and Paulo, but I would not be surprised if the winner of this fight gets Cannonier, with the winner of that one leapfrogging Vettori and Costa to get the next shot behind Izzy and Whitaker.
He leapfrogged Costa on my rankings, but not on the total rankings when you tallied everybody's votes up. I agree. I'm not giving Paulo Costa a fight right now for a title anyway, or even a number one contenders fight. But because not only did he lose, he's pulled out of fights and he made everybody look bad. He made the he questioned the organization. He said he was drunk. And look, you just can't have that shit. And as far as Vettori goes, he lost. But I want to bring this back full circle to Paddy, who just made his debut. Paddy's calling out the top of the division. I would suggest pump your brakes. Look at what Sean O'Malley's doing. And look, the reason why I bring up Sean O'Malley is he's turning down the big fights, because what happens? Same thing happens to Darren Till. He got thrown to the dogs in the welterweight division, and now he's in the middleweight division. Go slow and stick around for a long time, because once you get to the top, I don't give a shit who you are. You can't stay there very long. And so get all those wins and wait to get to the top. And I feel like now that's not what Till's doing now. Till's been through all that. Till's been through that, seen that, done that. And this is a new Darren Till. But for Paddy, I might slow my roll. You just got the organizations keep taking these fights with the 18th, 19th ranked guy, the 15th ranked guy. Don't even worry about the guys at the top of the division. Do that in 3 years when you've made good money and you've kind of solidified your longevity in the sport. Because right now, if you get thrown to the top of the division and lose, that's it. There's no coming back from that. There's no second act. You lost. And so for Till, though, I think that's a lot what happened to him in the welterweight division, to bring it back to Till and Brunson. And then now he's in a weight class where I feel like he looks better. He doesn't gas. He doesn't slow down. That's good. And he maintained his power. So, but having said all that, styles make fights. And I agree with you that Izzy would be a fun fight for Till. Whitaker rematch would be fun. Derek Brunson is the worst matchup in that division for Darren Till, And so here we are. You got to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I want to take it back to what you said about O'Malley, because I want to say something about him, and I don't know him, so I'm going to preface it with that. And he's an Arizona guy now, and I mean, look, he's out there with his personality. He's built a big following because of the knockouts and because of everything he's doing on social media. Good on him for building that following and building it up. But I cannot, in the spirit of competitiveness, in the spirit of win at all costs sports world that I've been raised in and that I've been a part of my whole life and my whole career, to sit there and say, I don't care, I get paid the same no matter who I fight, give me unranked opponents. I cannot understand that. I can't relate to it. I cannot condone it whatsoever. And he called out Dominic Cruz. In his defense, he did. He doesn't think Cruz will take the fight. But O'Malley's not ranked. And if you're going to take all the accolades that come along with becoming a star and saying that you only lost to Tito because you hurt yourself and blah, 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 injuries are a part of the game. Just ask Conor McGregor or Chris Weidman. By the way, my interview with Weidman is going to drop next week on MMA Weekly. But to get back to O'Malley, the whole notion of not wanting to fight higher-ranked guys and move up in the rankings shows me you're not fighting to win the ultimate prize, which is a belt. You're fighting for money. You're fighting for fame. Nothing wrong with that. I just can't relate to that, Jeff. And I guess I'm kind of ripping O'Malley, but kind of not. I cannot relate or understand whatsoever why anyone would say, give me an unranked opponent and let me sit there and languish and outside of the rankings. Never before have we seen an unranked fighter, correct me if I'm wrong, an unranked fighter, unranked. He's on Logan Paul's podcast, Impulsive. I mean, he's following that model. And it's like, dude, win some big fights for God's sake. You know, and if not, just, you know what? You're irrelevant. I'm sorry. If you're not beating top-level competition, you're not fighting top-level competition, I don't give a shit what you have to say. I really don't.
Well, look, there's two sides to that coin. You know, I'm not fighting a top 10 ranked guy on that contract. I'm just not doing it. But, you know, I'm not doing it. And the UFC, that's their model, right? We sign you to a long contract. We got you for cheap. We push you. You fight top 10 guys. If you last, we renegotiate. If you don't last, you're out of here. And so I think that if O'Malley's actually smart. You know, I think that right now you're on that beginning contract.
Paige Northcutt and Paige Van Zandt, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, so I know what you're saying, and I agree with you in the context of sports, right? In the context of competition, I agree with everything you're saying. But I also understand. I think what O'Malley's doing is he's fighting out this contract, and he's going to renegotiate, and then we'll see him start fighting those other guys if he can win. You know, if he can win. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, I understand what he's doing. And I think the model's changed. You know, the title doesn't mean as much anymore as it used to. I think what they did with the Poirier and McGregor and the lightweight division completely tarnished that title. I think that, you know, interim titles tarnish other titles, you know, tarnish other division belts. And so I don't know that the belt means as much anymore. But the money does. You know, the money does. We're in a weird kind of a world.
Yeah,
and I'll
sports
say this,
transitioning, Jeff.
Yeah, like NASCAR, you used to see, and we're going to bring it up because NASCAR and the UFC had a grassroots following, and they kind of gone through the same path of taking over the big boys in sports. They went long route, but they did it through a grassroots following, and their own kind of promoter and their own organization. And so I think that they're very similar, although vastly different sports. But you used to see drivers race till they were 50, 55 years old, and then you see like Dale Jr., who's made his money, and he gets the hell out when he's 39. Because the money's there. And so why are you really doing it? Are you doing it for the accolades, or are you doing it for financial security? And I think that that's a question that everybody, all athletes, have to take a step back and answer. I think right now we're kind of in an environment where we're fighting for money. And, you know, we're racing for money. We're playing basketball for money. We're not necessarily looking for the titles and everything. It's just a weird world we're living in right now. And I get it, man. I get it. You know, and then plus you sit back and you look at the Jake Pauls of the world making the money that they're making. And so, you know, I think that also lights a fire under guys to be smarter with their business decisions. But, but I agree with what you're saying, though. I'm hardcore like you. Fucking fight for the title, fight who they put in front of you. But I understand. You know, I understand where it's coming from.
And they've seen what's happened to Sage Northcutt, Paige Van Zandt, people who got pushed too fast, too soon, you could argue. And, you know, they're both out of the UFC and making more money elsewhere, especially Paige Van Zandt's doing really well financially anyway. And they were pushed early, and you're right. The UFC signed you to a long-term deal. If you win, you win. That's great. They push you, and if you don't, then they kind of scrap you. But in Darren Till's case, very rare that this happens, by the way, that Dana White comes out and admits that he was wrong and said, hey, we pushed Darren Till too fast too soon, and we didn't do the kid any favors. I thought that was big of Dana to do, but I think he was dead on balls. They did push him too fast too soon. He got beat up really bad by Woodley, and then the fight happened after that with Masvidal, but Till was winning that fight. And obviously the Woodley fight, that was when Woodley, I actually thought, man, Woodley's going to go on a tear because it looked like no one was going to be able to beat Woodley after what he did to Till. And then Kamaru came along and Gilbert Burns and Colby Covington and Luke A. And now Woodley's fighting. And by the way, Tyron Woodley, I love you, dude. I really do. And he's been good to me in my career, so it pains me. Watching Tyron Woodley agree to get the tattoo, I felt like my man card got pulled. And I feel like every MMA fan should feel the same way. Tyron Woodley basically begging Jake Paul for a rematch, getting his name tattooed on his inner thigh just to get that rematch. I don't know how you got it, Jeff, and we're waiting for Paddy Pimblett, which is always must-see TV, to come to the podium. But I feel like part of my man card as an MMA fan got pulled when Woodley did that shit. I just felt like it was a complete embarrassment.
Yeah, man. I mean, Woodley's at the end of his career, and he knows, and he wants that one more big payday. And look, I feel bad for Woodley, and I'll say this, and this is why I feel bad for Woodley. Had those ropes not been there, that's a 10-8 round, and that fight's a draw. Fight gets ruled a draw. And so, I understand where he's coming from, but yes, I agree. I'm not getting a freaking tattoo of anybody on my body to try to secure. You're just bowing down to people. You're not gonna. It's kind of like I don't know, man. That's got too much of a peasant nature written all over it. I'm giving a big middle finger to Jake Paul, and just keep talking about the ropes, keep talking about the right hand, keep talking about how I wasn't wobbled. Your fucking ass got saved by and that's the way I'm going about getting a rematch.
All he had to do was throw the jab, Jeff. If he learned how to throw jabs and combos, he would have won that fight. Simple. That's what I said last week on the live stream. He just didn't throw jabs at all. And that's why he lost. He actually landed the shots. He just didn't throw the jab.
Well, he isn't a boxer. And so he landed, and when he did throw his jab, he didn't follow up. He was throwing one punches at a time, and that's not how you box. Everything's combinations. Anderson Silva, while he's not the greatest boxer in the world, but if you watch his approach to it, it's volume, it's combinations, and you can beat boxers if you do that. But to do what Woodley did, you're only looking for a knockout. And look, he got close. Don't get me wrong, he got close, but he lost that fight. I don't think there's a lot of people other than Ben Askren out there saying that they think he won. I felt like he lost the fight. But when I went
Weidman said the same thing when I talked to Weidman the next day. He said he felt like Woodley won. But these guys are trying to score it like an MMA fighter, and they're not looking at boxing. Boxing's about other things. And look at Jake Paul's defense and the combinations that he landed. And Woodley didn't. You said it. He didn't follow up when he did land the jab. He doesn't know how to throw a combination.
I thought the split decision was generous. I thought the split decision was generous. I thought it was generous. I had Jake Paul winning. Yeah, I had Woodley winning 2 rounds, basically. And
which
3
one's fourth round for sure, right?
Yeah, 4th round for sure. And I think, and then like the second, and the second round was close. The second round was really close, and so but there's no way I score that for him. There's just no way I think that the MMA guys like Askren, of course Askren's biased because they're buddies. But Weidman is because they think it's like a fight in the octagon where forward pressure, moving forward counts for something. Moving forward and not throwing any punches don't count for shit, especially in boxing. And so I feel like maybe some MMA fighters, and plus it's just wishful thinking. That fight that's why I watched it a second time, because I knew as an MMA guy, I'm rooting for Woodley, right? I'm rooting for Woodley. And so I'm watching Woodley, everything he lands. So I'm like, I got to watch that again because I know I'm biased. And so, but I still, even the first time I watched it, I had Woodley losing that fight. The second time I watched it, I was like, damn, man, had that knockdown happen, looking at the scorecards, that's a draw, and that's huge. But I do agree with what Woodley's saying, and what I've heard other commentators talk about, is that I think the rematch is going to happen because Jake Paul has to fight somebody, but he can't fight somebody too damn dangerous. He can't fight a real boxer. And so, and to fight like a Masvidal or somebody like that, they're not a UFC champion. Oh, no. And so Woodley is still the biggest name, in my opinion, that he can get for his next fight. So I actually think the fight's going to happen. And hopefully for Woodley that it does. Or Showtime's
imagine he gets the tattoo and it doesn't happen, Jeff. If you got the tattoo, I would hunt him down in the street and jump him. If I got the tattoo and he didn't take, I would go to his mansion. I would hop the wall. I would find Jake Paul anywhere on God's green earth and beat the living shit out of him. Because let's face it, Tyron Woodley kills Jake Paul if there's no rules in the fight. If it's MMA rules, Jake Paul's not alive. If it's not a boxing match, there's no chance in hell that he survives that. And I would make sure that he knew that as Tyron Woodley. But I think also, it's time for us to start giving Jake Paul a little bit of credit. He's winning these fights. He knocked out Ben Askren. He legitimately beat a former UFC champ and, in my opinion, a legendary champ. in Tyron Woodley, but it goes to what you've been saying all along, Jeff. I thought the good strikers in the UFC, and not to say Woodley's a great striker, would go in there and decimate a guy like Jake Paul in the boxing ring, but you've said all along, and we know, two completely different sports. And if Woodley didn't knock him out, he wasn't going to get the win. And he did come close. I mean, if the ropes weren't there, you're right. And Jake Paul rocked Woodley a couple times too. But at the end of the day, Jake Paul is going to get to a point where he calls out the wrong MMA fighter and he gets planted by a guy like Masvidal. Think of what Izzy might do to him, or a guy like that who's actually a legit striker and kickboxer or boxer. Someone with a kickboxing background like an Izzy would be a nightmare for Jake Paul. But it's time for us to start giving him credit. He's Colin Crandall said it on the show last week when he came in and subbed for you. He said, look, there's no way he beats any of the top 10 cruiserweights in the world in boxing, maybe not top 20. He's got a long way to go before he becomes a legitimate threat as a boxer. But in terms of winning these fights, and people are saying, and I have a lot of friends, and you guys all watch me, and I'm sorry, and I'm not going to say any names, but I've been on the local and regional circuits for a long time calling fights, ring announcing, and I know a ton of fighters who never got their shot at the UFC, and they have the mindset like they did with CM Punk, that he's costing somebody a fight by doing what he's doing. Jake Paul is not doing that. Jake Paul and all these fighters are going, we train our asses off, we're legitimate. I get it, but you can't draw ants to a picnic, and that's what this is about. Nobody in boxing besides Canelo and a heavyweight, and we're looking at Fury and Wilder again, which I'd rather have my brains blown out, but when your biggest fights are Mike Tyson, Roy Jones, and Jake Paul fights and Logan Paul fights against Mayweather and everything Mayweather does, if that's your biggest draw, your sport is screwed. Boxing is so far beyond screwed right now in terms of legitimate fights, banking, and making big money, other than Canelo, maybe for a few more fights, that Jake Paul is the biggest draw in your sport. He's actually elevating the sport and putting more eyes on it. So you do what the UFC did with Conor McGregor. You put some of the up-and-coming prospects on that card, and you build their name value and their name recognition. Poirier, Khabib became huge stars when they fought Conor McGregor. They've got to start putting some of these guys on a Jake Paul card like I thought the UFC would do on McGregor's last fight card to get Oliveira a name. No one wants to fight Oliveira even for the belt. Gaethje doesn't consider him a legitimate champion. He thinks that Chandler wasn't a legitimate title contender. And then Poirier was talking about fighting Diaz. And when people start taking money fights over fights for the belt, it's because you have not built the name of your champion. Poirier. Oliveira has no name recognition and no name value to the point where even for the belt, guys don't want to fight him because the UFC is not going to pay him to do it. So they have not elevated the name. Boxing has not elevated the names and created more stars to the point where now you have freaking Evander Holyfield coming out at 58 years old, replacing 54-year-old Oscar De La Hoya against Vitor Belfort. And these are the fights that are the biggest draws. Your sport is screwed. The UFC is thriving. Boxing is screwed.
I mean, boxing's not MMA. You know, I'll watch an undercard in MMA because I might see a head kick knockout. You know, I might see a crazy submission. I might see, you know, something weird happen. In boxing, man, I don't watch the undercard. I tune in for the main event, and that is it. And so it's hard to build those guys, even on a Jake Paul fight card, because that's the only damn fight I watched on that fight card. Right. And it's just hard. It's just hard to do, you know. But look, Jake Paul. I'll say this. Look, his chin was better than I thought, and his cardio seems to be okay for an 8-round fight. But he overcommits on stuff. He leaves himself wide open. You could kill his body. A trained boxer. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about MMA guys doing it. Conor McGregor tried to do it right. He tried to. He took off from MMA, and he specifically worked on boxing to fight Floyd. Worked on boxing, spent months and months and months and months. Well, what happens when you do that is you become a better boxer, but then your MMA is lacking. And so then he comes back to MMA and gets the shit kicked out of him. You know, and so it's a double-edged sword for these, not for Woodley. You know, not for Woodley, because he's done with MMA. And Woodley has some skills. You know, Woodley has a decent jab. He has got fast hands. He does have punching power, but he doesn't have the mentality of a boxer. You know, he doesn't have the mentality of a boxer. He doesn't box. So he doesn't know how to win boxing fights. You know how like if this was an MMA fight, Woodley knows to take you down in the last 45 seconds of a round, steal the round. You know, he knows how to fight MMA and win fights, even in decisions. But in boxing, it's a different deal altogether. You've got to do volume. You know who would be very difficult to beat at boxing would be like a Nate Diaz, because he's going to throw 200 punches around. You know, he's going to throw 200 punches around, and so
and he knows how to use the jab.
Yeah, but it might not hurt anybody, but he's going to sit there and pop, and that's what Woodley didn't do, and that's what Jake Paul banks on. You know, that's why he's calling out. It's not scripted at all. It's not what I'm saying, but it's definitely handpicked. And then you have these MMA guys who are just jumping at the chance for the money, right? I mean, hell, I'd fight Jake Paul, 100%. Because if you could slip that right hand. This is what I think about boxing with Jake Paul. If you slip his huge right hand, you can land 5 or 6 punches before he gets back in a defensive set. And so that's why he can't fight the top guys in boxing. And Izzy and those guys
and they're going to test him for PEDs in the future. They're going to test him for PEDs. I mean, come on. Let's. That's the 800-pound gorilla. There's no doubt, and at least in some people's minds, that Jake Paul was juiced to the gills for this fight, and they weren't tested. They did not get tested for that fight, and you can't tell me that wasn't set up by design. I mean, look, I'm going to get myself in big trouble. The opinions of Jim Grieshaber are only the opinions of Jim Grieshaber. In my opinion, if there was no testing and it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a duck. But in the future, he would be tested. Meanwhile, Jeff, real quick, I don't know if you saw this, but what just happened in the Rountree fight, man, it's disturbing. With Khalil Rountree and Modestas Bukauskas, he smashed his face up, broke his nose, but then he threw a kick, like a side kick, to the top of the knee of the left leg of Bukauskas, and his whole leg buckled. So they're saying probably ACL, MCL, and PCL all shredded for Modestas Bukauskas, along with his face being mangled. And Rountree, it's time we start taking Khalil Rountree very seriously at light heavyweight, because after the loss to Johnny Walker, he beat Eric Anders. It's always a tough one. And then Kutalaba and Prachnio, he loses to them one by TKO by decision. But the TKO by leg kick, he can get in there and fight against anybody in that division. And you're not going to want to see Khalil Rountree Jr. He just brutalized Modestas Bukauskas. And I don't know if you saw that finish, but it was a whole mess of ugly.
Look, John Jones throws that kick a lot. And I hate that fucking kick because of that right there. But it's a part of the game. You got to check that or whatever. He just got in a position where his weight was on that leg when he landed that kick, and he just completely buckled. I mean, there was no question. Whenever he went down, I was like, well, that's an ACL or an MCL or worse injury. Yeah, man, I hate to see that kick, but it's highly effective, man. It's highly effective, and I think after today, you're going to see a lot more people use that kick. It's devastating, though, because it's really designed to injure the knee, right? I mean, that's exactly what's supposed to happen when you land that kick, as terrible as that is. But that's brutal to watch, man. I don't like seeing somebody's leg go sideways like that. No. But yeah, props to Rountree. He did what he was supposed to do. When I say I don't like the kick, I'm not saying that it should be banned or they shouldn't use it. What I'm saying is, shit, man, I don't want you kicking my knee like that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, it's brutal, and it's within the rules, obviously. But I mean, that just was devastating. He had his weight, kind of like not really all of his weight on that front foot, and just to buckle it like that without it really planted to stiffen it up, he was just starting to plant it, and that was why he was able to bend the leg the way that he was. So a brutal finish. So a TKO by Paddy Pimblett with punches, and then a leg kick for Khalil Rountree Jr. And you've got Alex Morano and David Zawada coming up with Aspinall and Spivak at heavyweight, and then Brunson until the main event. Jim Grieshaber, Jeff Cain on MMA Weekly. Jeff, what should everybody do on YouTube, man? Help us out.
Yeah, well, what they need to do is they need to subscribe, first of all. Then they need to hit that bell button so they can get the notifications when we're on air. And while they're at it, they can jump over there to MMA Weekly, like us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, like us on Instagram. And, that's what they need to do, Jim.
Yep, and this week I'm going to have an
They need to follow you on Twitter and Instagram, too, right?
Jim Gries, Gries. Yeah, Jeff doesn't want anyone following him on Instagram. He's the only person I've ever known who doesn't want followers. So don't follow Jeff on Instagram. But
I don't put anything on there anyway, so you can follow me, but you're going to be disappointed when I don't post anything. Yeah.
Hey, this makes it even better because that makes the show even more must-see TV, Jeff, because if you want the opinions of Jeff Cain and you want to have some Cainiac in your blood, you're going to have to be here when we stream live on MMA Weekly, and you're going to have to read pretty much, if you see it on the website, it has something to do with Jeff Cain. And by the way, props to my guy, Hunter Brownstein. I've known Hunter a long time, and he's doing a great job writing with MMA Weekly as well. And that's an awesome. The website numbers have gone way up. our numbers on Facebook have gone way up, YouTube. So we really appreciate all you guys. But I'll tell you what, I can't wait this week. The interview that I just did with Chris Weidman is going to drop. We cover a little bit of everything with the All-American, and you'll see little clips of that on the website, a write-up as well. But that's part of it. I mean, just kind of like showcasing the fighters and talking about how Weidman has always gone all in on himself and the negotiation tactics he's used and his place in history after the Silva fights and the Machida fight, and then the incredible, intense adversity that he's gone through. And the leg injury that was just suffered by Bukauskas just kind of reminded me again of what happened in the Weidman-Uriah Hall fight, Jeff. And so Chris gives us an update. In fact, he was driving in his van and going to actually rehab when we did the interview. So he was in there working hard, trying to get back. And he still thinks, Jeff, he can be a champion again. He looks at the top of the division. Besides Brunson, he doesn't see any wrestlers, and we got Brunson until today. So I asked him about guys like Till and Izzy and Whitaker, and he said none of them have seen a guy like him who's got the high-level wrestling, who's got the high-level black belt in jiu-jitsu, and who can strike. So, I mean, he's got to have that mindset, but it just kind of it made me think about it when I was thinking about the interview. The top of the middleweight division and many of the divisions right now in the UFC are almost devoid of wrestlers. The heavyweight division, Blades is the only guy. At one point in time, wrestlers dominated the UFC. Those days are gone because the world changes, fighters evolve, and they've adapted to that style.
The UFC stopped signing them.
Come in and break people down by taking them down and beating them up. And not the case. Guys like Izzy have developed such great takedown defense, even though they're not wrestlers. It's tough to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, but the UFC, they aren't. I mean, they didn't get Askren at the height of his career. They waited and they got him late. And look, the way that UFC has been anti-wrestler, and I'll say that they've been anti-wrestler. And if you don't believe me, ask Matt Lindland. Who beat everybody and couldn't get a title fight because he was a wrestler and wasn't appealing to the masses. The UFC doesn't like that. I think the last great wrestler. And look, I'm not even going to say Cain because Cain didn't wrestle people, right? He knocked you out. Hell, man, who was the last great? Matt Hughes, Tito Ortiz.
Henry Cejudo. Henry.
Yeah.
But even Henry beat Mighty Mouse on the feet. He beat Dillashaw on the feet, and he beat Moraes. Yep.
Yeah. But that's what I was saying about wrestling earlier. I think we were off the air. Is because we were talking about Weidman and how he's able to knock people out. It's because they have that wrestling threat. If Cejudo didn't have that Olympic wrestling background, then his strikes wouldn't be nearly effective. But you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I would rather strike with Henry Cejudo than wrestle with Henry Cejudo. You know what I mean? But then you realize, shit, maybe I don't want to strike with him. But yeah, Cejudo's definitely a high-level accomplished wrestler who made it to the top of the sport. Not really using his wrestling at the latter part. He definitely did in the beginning, though. I'm just trying to think of wrestlers who are there. Frankie Edgar started as a wrestler. There's guys in there. But yeah, the trend right now is striker. We'll see what Brunson can do tonight. He's kind of carrying the flagship of wrestlers, especially on this fight card. But yeah,
Johnny Hendricks was a wrestler, right? Johnny Hendricks was a wrestler. John Jones, a dominating wrestler, but he hasn't wrestled in a long time. He used wrestling a lot on his first title run, but hasn't used it much in his latest defenses. Jones was the one who comes to mind. Stipe is a very good wrestler, but not known as a wrestler. He's a boxer first and foremost. And you start thinking about other divisions.
I mean Cormier.
Khabib is the one. Khabib and DC are the last two, I would say.
Yeah, Khabib dominated him. He used his wrestling, never left his bread and butter. That's one of the things that I like about Khabib is he never changed. His wrestling was that dominant that he didn't have to change.
Kamaru too. Kamaru's a great wrestler.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Although he hasn't needed it lately, but yes, Kamaru is absolutely a good wrestler and a solid wrestler. I mean, look, it's just MMA's evolved. I mean, that's what's happened is that you have to have some wrestling to just throw it out there and keep the guy honest. You're not going to plan on every punch and every kick without me threatening a takedown at some point, whether I could wrestle or not. But the sport's evolved, But like I said, those wrestlers get to set up strikes that strikers don't get to because the strikers always worried about the takedown, and then boom, you get hit with a big shot. You're like, shit, I thought he was going to shoot. But yeah, DC used his wrestling. DC used his wrestling. He took down John Jones. He tried to wrestle Stipe and Khabib, of course. So, yeah, I mean, we're not devoid of wrestling, but it's definitely less wrestlers. Because there was a time when all of them were wrestlers, right? All of them from the heavyweight division all the way down to the lightweight division for the most part, you know.
Yep. There's an old poster that they put out there with the champions a few years back, and you know, I mean, if you count Ronda as a judoka, that's not wrestling, but it's not striking, right?
It's a ground fighter,
ground fighter. And then you had Cain and you had Jones. GSP was a great MMA wrestler who came in as a karate guy, but used his wrestling almost more than anyone. And then you look at certain divisions. I mean, look when you know, Eddie Alvarez is a good wrestler when he was the champ at 55. And you had Dominic Cruz, who came in as a wrestler and was a champion. Uriah Faber was a wrestler. So many of the fighters were wrestlers. And really, Aldo was ahead of his time using those leg kicks the way that he did and striking the way that he did. But now you look at the champions, Jeff, and across the board, they're not wrestlers, man. I mean, Kamaru is known as a wrestler, but he's been finishing people on the feet. And Ngannou is only a striker. You know, Valentina's a Muay Thai fighter. Amanda's a jiu-jitsu girl, but she's a great striker. That's how she's won her fights. Whitaker and Izzy are strikers. Jan Blachowicz is a striker. Glover Teixeira is a striker. Poirier is a striker. Justin Gaethje is a striker. And Poirier's got good wrestling. Michael Chandler is probably the only guy at lightweight who's a big-time wrestler right now.
Yeah, I mean, Gaethje's a good wrestler. He's just not known for it. That's kind of weird that whenever you named all of those people, well, they had to evolve. You know, you can't come into, except Khabib, you know, you just can't be a wrestler and expect you can beat a lot of people, but you're not going to get to the top of the sport, I don't think, just on your wrestling, except for friggin' Khabib. You know, he's the one that breaks the mold. You know, but most of the time you got to develop the striking, and all of those guys became accomplished strikers. You know, all of those. Faber absolutely was a huge wrestler. Dominic Cruz was, when he beat Faber early on, he out wrestled him. You know, and now Cruz has got his footwork. He became this real hard thing to figure out. Dillashaw is a great wrestler. You know, they just don't use it. You know, they just don't use it unless they have to. You know, unless they have to. Like, you'll see Dillashaw shoot for a takedown if Cody catches him.
I wanted to give the fans something. You know, a fight for the fans.
And the podium. I think it's Mount McCann, Jeff. You're on MMA Weekly.
I wanted it more than that last round. And I won a new contract. That was the last fight on my contract, and I just had to show me worth. And after the headbutt that dropped me in the first round, honest to God, my hands feel broke. But I thought, what am I made of? I'm made of that pure scout nastiness. And put my hands down, walk forward, let's just go. And I wanted it more. I landed better shots. And I am on top of the world.
You started off very aggressively, as you often do. How much did the headbutt take out of you for a little bit until you got your bearings back?
I don't even remember the end of the round. I don't know, like, what part of the round was it?
About a third minute.
Yeah, don't really remember too much. And then I just remember sitting down thinking, right, you've lost your last two fights because you've lost the first round. Go and change it. How much does this fight mean to you? How much pressure do you have on your head? Your big brother's fighting next. The other two from Liverpool are fighting after. Do you want to be the loser who's going home unhappy, or do you want to show how to fight through adversity and resilience and fucking come hesky the other girl? So I absolutely smashed it, mate.
Did I hear you telling Bisping that you had some injuries coming into this?
I done an interview with Nick Pete. He came to the gym for BT Sport a couple of weeks ago, and we've been nursing like a bad knee, a bad shoulder, done my hand in the other week, and it was just like, I found out about this fight on May 4th, so that was like 15, 16 weeks of getting ready to win. And there was a time in the fight camp, I remember, with my coach Paul, where it was just on top of me, and he just looked at me and he was like, it's not enough, because I was starting to believe, oh, I feel bad, it's just because the boys are big and all that. And he was like, no, you're better than this. I'm not going to allow you not to be great. And then there was a turning point in the camp, and I thought, just get to the fight and the crowd will pull you through. And that's exactly what that happened. Did you hear them? Did you hear them screaming the meatball? Yeah, baby.
I know this one means a lot to you, but how much sweeter is it knowing Paddy came out and did the thing afterwards?
Did you see me? Did you hear me? Oh, mate. If you've ever seen us on Cage Warriors and you see us fight together, that's what we bring every single time. Every single time. If I was Dana, Sean, Mick, Hunter, I'd put us on every card together because I felt safe with me little big bro. And he's just done the business. I was doing an interview and I seen it was like, it wasn't that good, do you know what I mean? And then I came out, started singing his name, and then he just switched on. And that's not because of me, and I was singing, but I got to see him finish his first fight in the UFC. This is the single best day in our gym's history, do you know what I mean? And it's like, Paul Rimmers took these two kids who, I had boxing background, but Paddy didn't have nothing, and he's moulded us into role models. He's taught us to be better people, taught us to be better fighters. This one's for him, mate. This one's for next gen. This one's for Liverpool.
Last thing for me, I know you're on the gin and juice right now, so
it's just over there.
Is Vegas ready for this evening, though? The carnage I can imagine.
Listen, I've just got to not get locked up because I've got a plane home and I've had 12 hours. I haven't had a bevy for so long, lads, and the Euros was on. I didn't even get to drink with the football, so no one's safe. No one's safe.
Congrats, man.
Thanks, Mal.
I've just got one question. I think it's the most important one of the night. Do blondes really have more fun?
Well, I'm a new blonde. Someone said to me the other day, you're going to do Derek Brunson. I said, what's that? They was like, win, because he's on a win streak because he's got blonde hair. The two blondes have stole the show this week, haven't they? Obviously, they have more fun, and it's given me more Instagram followers. Because I don't look like Miss Trunchbolt anymore. Can I go? Give me the gin. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Hello.
There you are. You're there.
Hey, I'll mute myself next time, Scott. That's our fault for not muting ourselves, but that happens every time we get muted from control. But hey, I'll tell you what, Molly McCann's happy, Jeff, with a good win tonight, and she got a unanimous decision. But it's interesting when you look right now. We've got Murano and Zawada, and they're fighting at 325 and counting of round number one. An interesting matchup here, Jeff, at welterweight. Which one can use the platform that they get and move on? Now, Zawada's an interesting fighter. You know, when you look at he's coming off a loss, and he hasn't fought anybody big. And you look at the same thing with Murano. He lost to Anthony Pettis a couple of fights ago, and then he got a win against Cowboy Cerrone. That's the last time we saw him. He TKO'd Cowboy, and that might be the last time we ever see Cowboy. So that might be why Murano's famous, is the last fight of Cowboy Cerrone, if that indeed is what happens. But, to get this platform on a fight card like this one with Till and Brunson, to be a co-main, is a great opportunity for both these guys. And I'm excited for each of them to take advantage of it. And so far, it's a pretty entertaining fight. They're going back and forth on the feet, each landing some shots. And, Murano and Zawada now at 2.5 minutes halfway through round number one.
Yeah, I'm actually posting up the Paddy story on his successful UFC debut. Yeah, this has been an entertaining fight from what I've seen, man. It's been kind of back and forth, high pace. I want to get back to her though, man. She, I like that accent, man. Me, I like the way that the Scottish people use me instead of my. It's like it's me debut, not my debut. It's me debut. I enjoyed that, man. She,
your wife is in me DMs.
Props to her and props to Paddy on that, man. I mean, she just like, I hope I don't get locked up. I was like, oh my God, who is this? I should know more about her. But yeah, that's a big night for England and Scotland and that whole part of the world. But moving on, who do we got? How many fights we got left?
This one and two more.
Okay, two more. Okay, yeah. Yeah, both
here's illustrating my point, Jeff, about before of Charles Oliveira, and they need to build up names. And I think we got Paddy Pimblett coming to the podium, and we'll throw it there. We'll talk about Oliveira when we come back. The newest would-be star in the making, Paddy Pimblett, with a big win tonight in his Octagon debut over Luigi Vendramini. a TKO by punches at 425 in round 1. Here he is from Vegas on MMA.
I lost in condition it before I come to the show, lad.
You knew it was time to shine then?
Yeah, always, lad. It's gotta be.
Is that probably the perfect way to debut, you think?
Yeah, 100%. I'd run out in 5 seconds, get a flying knee, like Masvidal, but yeah, that was perfect. Showed everyone that I can come through adversity as well, because he did catch me with a nice left hook. I need to stop letting people punch me in the face, lad. I'm a bit too... I want to put on too much of a show, lad, so I just put my hands down and get into firefights with people I do it in the gym, my coaches, Paul, Ellis, Adam, Chris, my boxing coach, all moan at me for it, you know what I mean? What are you doing? Get your hands up. And I can't help myself, lad. I like fighting, you know what I mean? So I do, I just let some people hit me sometimes, which is pretty stupid because it can go wrong, but it didn't go wrong there, you know what I mean? It didn't go wrong and it was never going to go wrong. This is my destiny. I'm here, and I'm the new kid on the block, lad. And I told you the other day, I'm going to get a first round finish. People think I'm a grappler, and I've just shut everyone up. I can strike, I can grapple, I can wrestle, and I've got the personality, I've got the look. The new king's here, lad.
I know you said to Biscuit Scouts don't get knocked out, but how rocked were you when you got in?
I weren't rocked at all. I had to straight to vent it. After it, he got caught with a shot, and I was like, did I? Like, you know what I mean? I can remember him swinging the left hook at me, like, where he's got a nice left hook, but take me hands off to Luigi, man. He can take a punch and a kick, because I kicked him in the head, man, 5 times, man. You know what I mean? But lesser men go down off that. Hats off to him, he can take a shot, but on the first ever man to finish him at lightweight, lad.
Come on, Esty!
That kid he fought last was meant to be a top level striker, and I'm meant to be a grappler, lad, and I've just come in and knocked him out in a round. So I'm here to make statements, lad, and that's what I've just done.
You mentioned the kicks, so I was very impressed with the team kicks, and you, like you said, kicked him in the head a couple of times, and he took the shots well.
Yeah, he did. Like, I'm very surprised that he took them. I was saying before the fight, I'm either going to knock him out with a head kick or a right hand, and I landed the good.
I think we lost sound at the podium of Paddy Pimblett here on MMA Weekly. Paddy the Baddy with a win in his UFC debut. If you guys can hear us in Vegas, we lost the mic, the feed, and that happens sometimes when you're coming through the house feed, and it's called a malt box, and everybody's plugging into it, and you got the sound in the room. Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah,
all right,
something
so
come up.
We're okay. We just lost house sound. We lost Paddy the Baddy.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get that audio back up. But yeah,
as soon as
it sometimes happens.
We'll go back to him.
Yeah, and luckily, like later on when we run the video on the YouTube channel of
Jack Shore just put on an
audio
show.
There it is.
It's taken you a while to get here, right? You've got your journey, now you're in the UFC, it's been spoken about for so long. So what's next? Do you just try and rattle off fights as often as you can, or do you want to wait till you get a crowd in England and then fight bigger names right off the bat? How do you see the next stage of your career going?
I don't care, lad. As I said, Luigi Vendramini was the 4th name that got put forward to me for this fight. Every other name that got forward to me, I said, yeah, I'll never say no to a fight. I'm not a bitch ass. You know what I mean? Whatever name gets put to me on the contract, like, I'm going to sign it and I'm going to fight them. I don't care if they're ranked or they're not ranked or where they're from or where it is. You know what I mean? If it's in their backyard. If it's in their backyard, everyone will start going simple when I walk out anyway. And that's just what I do. But as Dana said on his where he tells you what fights to watch on the card, he said honourable mention to Paddy the Baddy. He knows that. It'll be fun going back to England with this kid. So November, December, let's get a show on in England, lad, and let's blow the roof off the gap.
Congrats, man.
Thank you very much for that.
Paddy the Baddy.
Yes, fellas. What's happening?
Hey, great victory. Now, Bryce Mitchell was able to get the camo shorts from Venom. So how soon are we going to see Venom putting the orange shorts on Paddy the Baddy?
You never know, lads, you never know. If you can get me a pair of orange shorts, I will get them sorted, but the red ones were a chance tonight, didn't they? So I can't complain much.
I don't think a lot's been talked about enough, though, but you came to Vegas midweek. What about your sleep schedule? How were you able to put on such a great performance on such short notice to adjusting to the time change?
Yeah, I was traveling for 29 hours on Tuesday. Got like 2 hours sleep on flight. I've only been having about 5 hours sleep a night. But this is what I was put on this earth to do, lad. Entertain people and beat people up. And it's what I do. That I only had 5 hours sleep last night doesn't mean nothing to me. I was always coming in here and getting a first round finish. I said it from the get-go, and I delivered, you know what I mean? I delivered, lad. Sent Luigi Packer back to be a delivery boy in Brazil.
Phenomenal hair.
Oh, it's you know it, lad, you know it. As I say, I washed and conditioned it before I come out, lad. So it looks fresh. Nice one to film.
That's it for Paddy the Batty. No more questions for the guy who makes his UFC debut. He's been calling out Conor McGregor, Masvidal. He's talking about calling everybody out. And we only get like 4 questions from me tonight at the UFC Apex. Jeff Cain, what is your world coming to? I had 100 questions I would have asked Paddy the Batty.
Yeah, I would have asked him more questions for sure. And I don't know. Holiday weekend, I guess everybody's. This is an early event. Everybody's going to go out. I guess that's what it is.
I'm not hearing Jeff. If you can hear me, Scott, we're here in the room in Vegas, but I'm not hearing Jeff. And we're frozen in time somewhere.
Can you hear me
there
now?
We go. Stranger in a strange land. Who is that, Jeff? Land of ice and snow.
I do not know.
Who? Iron Maiden.
Oh, there you go. Ken Pishna would know that. He would have jumped right on that.
Trapped inside this prison, lost and far from home. Yeah, I don't know what maybe sing the Maiden there, but the other day I posted a post about the darkness, and I tried to roll my eyes back in my head like the Undertaker, which I can't. Look, no shot. I don't know how the hell the Undertaker does that. Can you do the Undertaker eye roll? I tried to say, from the darkness comes the light.
No.
And I had a black hood on. And I posted an Ozzy song, which was shot in the dark. You know, voices are calling inside my head. Ozzy. So it made me think of Ozzy, and I've been on this metal kick ever since I played that Ozzy song, and I've been going back and listening to Ozzy and Maiden and Ronnie James Dio and all the stuff I listened to as a teenager, man. It took me back.
There you go. Headbangers Ball, back when MTV actually ran music.
Headbangers Ball. I loved it. Loved it.
Yeah.
And I was the white kid who everybody called, like, I was called a sellout. I was called all kinds of names because I loved heavy metal and I loved hip hop. And you weren't allowed to like both for some reason when I was a teenager until like Limp Bizkit, Kid Rock, and some of them came along, or until Public Enemy did the song with Anthrax, Bring the Noise, you know, and Jay-Z did the song with Linkin Park, the Numb Encore song. And I don't know what's going on here. We've got a redirect.
I don't know
notice.
what that is. Redirect.
People should have been redirecting us all along. I think, Jeff, they're finally onto something.
It's an Undertaker. Yeah, it's an Undertaker. I'm looking at the link. It's an Undertaker link. So, yeah, he's just trying to jump on that. Look, I was the same way as you were. I was into hip hop in high school, but I was also, you know, Headbangers Ball. You know, my first concert that I ever saw was Van Halen 1984. And so I was into that. And then I was also, because I'm from Kentucky, that 20 miles from where bluegrass was invented, you know, I had this bluegrass. I don't like country music. It's what's kind of weird. So I had all, and then you know, like my sophomore year, I started getting into jam bands. So I kind of broke the mode on everything. You know, I had the jam band people. How do you like rap? And the rap people, how the hell do you like bluegrass? And now it's all coming together though, Jim, because the genres have all like blended together, right? There's bluegrass rap and heavy metal like rap, and there's just, I don't know, the genres have all come together. We were ahead of our time, Jim. That's what's happened, right?
I think that's what it is, Jeff. I think it's what it is. And forgive me real quick. I'm trying to post on MMA Weekly's Instagram story right now, so everybody can know that we're live, and you're going to see people like Paddy the Batty, and let everybody know what we're doing here today on MMA Weekly, and can go to our YouTube. I'm doing the swipe up and all those things here.
There's the Undertaker. Look at it.
We still had the Paul versus Woodley thing underneath, so we got a whole bunch of stuff going on. By the way, thank you to everybody. I think we had 890,000 views and counting on Paul versus Woodley. But right now, Jeff, we have Khalil Rountree Jr. on the podium, a big win tonight
Big
over
win.
Modestus Prokopis. He basically blew out his knee with a kick to the front of the leg. Here he is on MMA Weekly. We have audio. Let's go to the podium.
Yeah, let's see what happens. I probably still won't read it, if I'm being completely honest. But I am happy to read the messages and stuff from my family when I grab my phone, for sure.
So it seemed like a pretty violent fight, and I know that fights are violent anyways, but that was particularly violent. You had the broken nose. Did you notice that in the beginning, and were you kind of like, did that give you a little bit more energy when you saw that, or?
I mean, when I saw his nose start leaking, I don't think that it gave me more energy, but it just kind of proved to me that I was doing the right things, and my coaches kept telling me, just like, pick them apart, chop the tree down, you know. Although I did let a couple of wild shots off in the first round. Part of me can't help myself, like sometimes I just swing really big, but I kept going back to just what my coaches were telling me as far as just keep picking shots. So yeah, I saw his nose bleeding, but it was kind of more confirmation that I was doing the right thing.
And the knee in the second, can you kind of walk us through the decision to do that at that point of the fight rather than the first?
So first round, I was really kind of more feeling him out. Although I don't want to say feeling him out, but like reading him, right? Like first round, everybody comes out. That's when we're both fresh. So I was analyzing a little bit just how he was moving. I saw that a couple of punches had landed, but I figured like in the second round that he was going to come with more punches. I knew that he was going to probably clean up his punches. The whole time I'm thinking probably what his corner is telling him to do, what adjustments they're telling him to make. And one of them was I thought that they were going to tell him to throw more straight punches. So when I started to see him throw more straight punches, I saw that he was leaning a lot on his front knee, on his front leg. And I tried to throw it a little bit earlier in the second round. I tried to like throw a really hard one, but I missed. And I had to calm myself down and tell myself like, wait until he throws the jab to throw the side kick. And that's exactly what I did, and that's the result that happened.
Was there anything about him that surprised you?
No, nothing.
And when do you want to get back in there?
I feel good. I've had a great training camp. I can train some more. One more this year would be cool.
Do you have an opponent in mind?
Whoever, anybody. I know that people say that all the time, but like, you know what? Here's one thing. I know, and my goal now is to go on a streak. I know that I've had ups and I've had downs and all these things, but I'm back home. And I now see what training the way that I train and how I've trained this camp, I see the results that it can produce. So I'm confident that I'm going to have more of a streak. So I know that whatever it is that the UFC gives me, within the next 1 or 2 fights, I need to be in the top 15. Like, I need to earn my way there, obviously. But guys like Paul Craig, like, he's where he is right now. He's worked his way there. But I feel that I can do the same thing to Paul Craig again. And this is like, but I have to now prove it, right? I have to go there and I have to fight again. But like, where he is now, like, I belong up there. I know I do. And so now it's just about me doing the work so I can show the matchmakers or whoever else that makes these fights happen and makes these rankings happen, all that stuff. I need to do what I need to do. So whoever they give me, that's going to allow me to show them that I belong there, then so be it. But that's where I'm headed. I belong up there. I do.
Does this win feel heavier?
What does that mean?
Like, does it have a way more importance on you with everything you've gone through? Is this win more important than, say, maybe even your first win?
I don't want to say heavier. It doesn't feel heavier. It just feels like it feels relieving to know that all of the days and hours and everything that I put myself through this camp and that my coaches put me through this camp, and finally not taking any days off of training or not looking for any excuses to ease up on myself, and like having tremendous coaches that are always just telling me like, man, just go for it, you know, like stop holding back, just go for it. And that, like, the encouragement, like having my team back, having my coaching team back, John Wood, Lorenzo, Preston, like, you know, my original coaches, like we all sat down and we all had this talk, like, you know, we know where I was going wrong in the past, and now we've all kind of agreed to like hold each other accountable as a unit, and we all have the same vision of where we want to go as a unit. And so like, it's not so much a heavy, like it doesn't feel heavy, it just feels like this is what's supposed to happen when we work together and when we have the right game plan, you know? So like, I'm excited, but I know that there's gonna be many more fights and there's gonna be harder fights, and this isn't something that I get to go and just relax and rest. I'm happy, but I'm more motivated. I'm ready to get to the top. I really am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You mentioned game plan. What was the game plan for him coming in?
Focus. I told you this. The last interview when I was up here, I told you, man, my focus has been to focus, and that was the game plan. It was to focus, to see, you know, to see everything that he was throwing, to see what his feet were doing, to see everything, you know, to just be locked in, to lock into the target in front of me and do what I do and defeat him and win. And so, like, it's not like we actually had much of a strategy, you know, we kind of saw tendencies that this guy had and all these things, but to be honest, like, he didn't really show many of the tendencies, but the things that we were focusing on as far as like what I should be doing, because I was focusing on just like what was in front of me, the coaches, everything they called out, you know, level change, low kick, all these, it was all there. And that was because I was tuned into them and I was tuned into what was in front of me.
To be fair, you were putting it on him, so he probably didn't have a chance to show any of his tendencies.
Yeah, that's another thing too, you know, like I knew that when I walked into that cage, one thing that I was telling myself was like, I'm here. Like, I'm here. I'm not anywhere else. I'm not after the fight. I'm not before this. Like, I'm here, it's me and you. And I never took my eyes off of him. And it's like, we had to talk about this before, my coaches and I. It's like, you know, like, I'm now becoming a man that faces confrontation instead of running from it, or instead of trying to distract myself from it. It's like, if I step into that cage, or even if I'm out on the street, whatever, it's like, as soon as it presents itself, I'm here. And that's the person who shows up when I'm ready. What you guys saw tonight is I was ready for everything. Didn't care what it was, didn't care if I was getting choked out, whatever, I was ready for everything tonight.
And I think it kind of showed. I think when you look at the performance you did tonight as opposed to some of the other ones, I think sometimes, I would never call you a slow starter, but sometimes it feels like in some of the past fights, you maybe didn't get right off from the get-go, but it looked like tonight, like you said, you went straight at him. There was no hesitation at all. Was that in the forefront of your mind that you wanted to make sure that you were first and that you wanted to...
Yeah, absolutely, because if not him, then it's me, you know? Like, if I don't go first, then he's going to go first. And I can't take any chances in there with guys in the UFC. Doesn't matter who it is. If they're in the UFC, that means they're a great fighter. You know, that means that they got some power, especially at my weight class. So why not be first? You know, why not be there and ready for everything? Like, this is my life. It's not just fighting. Like, just like right now, he's about to go to the hospital. Same thing could have happened to me, but I was ready. I saw it, you know? So it's like, be first.
And with that, and you talk about the training and having, you know, how good the training was going into this, I think when you really started strong as well, there was a point where you actually kind of pulled yourself back a little bit. You slowed down a little bit, and I thought that showed a lot of growth. You know, in the sense of, in the past we might have seen you maybe gas out your arms a little bit, but it looked like you were aware of your body, you're aware of your mindset, that once you're going, that you were finding luck, but that you also had the mindset to slow down as well.
Yeah, it's, you know, a lot of the times it's like, we can fall into the emotions of everything, and you know, with pressure and all this stuff, it's like rushing, get it done. You know, I saw that I had rocked him a couple of times, and it's like, I don't want to rush, man. I'm here, you know? Like, that's what I was thinking, like, I'm here for the whole thing. Like, I don't need to, like, I'm not a child, you know, like this, like, I'm a man at work, this is my life, this is my everything, I cannot afford to make any mistakes. Now, if I were, you know, down 2 rounds and, you know, in a crap position, you better believe I'm gonna just dump everything I got, you know, and hope for the best. But I realized that I was I was already up 1 round. I realized that I was dominant. I realized that he was completely shut down in the first round, and that in the second he was going to probably press it a little bit more. So yeah, it's just about being aware, man. It's just I'm trying to have better control of myself so that I can take this far, man. Like, you know, I do have hopes of being a champion. I would love to be a champion, you know? But the most important thing is that I come in here and I get the job done, like, regardless, and I'm safe and I win. If I have to keep winning until finally I become champion, cool. I'm in no rush, you know? I'm not like, I want to be the champion. No, it'll happen, but, like, I'm here to acknowledge the step, every step. I'm here for every step. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
And last thing with that, I guess when you have a performance like this, when you have your coaches that are like, just let your hands go, it's going to work out, and then you have a performance like this, is it easy, or is this one that you hope to sort of internalize, to take forward, that you can believe in yourself more when you have these performances? Because I thought it was great when you talked earlier in the week about the fears and things that people have when you go in there. When you let your hands go and you see like what you did tonight, is that the kind of thing that you're like, it helps you to start believing in what everything these coaches are telling you?
Yeah, I mean, I always believe what my coaches tell me. That's why they're my coaches. You know, like, I choose these guys for a reason. Like, they're my guys, because they're my guys. The coaches are not, they're my guys. I trust them. I believe everything they tell me. I think that, you know, moving forward, I'm going to continue to believe them, whatever they tell me. As far as the self-belief, that's just a whole different thing. Like, I guess it really depends on, you know, the environment, the circumstance, the opponent. Like, you know what I mean? The mind works in so many different ways. Like, I try to think about fights that I've won and try to take those like old memories and try to bring them to the current situation, and sometimes it just doesn't work. You know, like sometimes it's really hard. So I'll always believe in my coaches, and that's why I have them there. And they're there to remind me of certain things when I can't necessarily see it. You know, they're there to remind me like it's there, not just go do the job. So
congrats on the victory, man. It was a great performance.
Thank you. You done? Okay.
We done here? All right, there we go. Khalil Rountree Jr., very impressive win. One of the most anticipated UFC debuts in a long time in Paddy Pimblett. And we get 4 questions, and we get Khalil Rountree, and we get an audio book, Jeff. Who can figure this out? But a very impressive win. And if you don't know the story of Khalil Rountree Jr., and he first really caught my eye when he beat Eric Anders, because Eric Anders is a tough out for anybody, starting middle linebacker for a national championship team at the University of Alabama, who goes on to be a UFC fighter, and he's been training at Fight Ready his last couple of camps here in Arizona, done really well. And hey, Zhang Wei Li is training at Fight Ready for the Thug Rose rematch too. So I wanted to throw that out there for Eddie Cha and Eric Albarracin and Santino DeFranco and all my guys there at Fight Ready. But I want to say this, Jeff. If you don't know Khalil Rountree's story, when he was 2 years old, his father was murdered. His father was the road manager for Boyz II Men, one of the most famous Motown groups of all time. They were on tour with MC Hammer on the Too Legit to Quit tour in Chicago in an elevator. He was shot and killed. 3 guys were going around banging on doors, causing trouble at a hotel, and Rountree's dad was trying to throw them out. He was shot and killed when Khalil Rountree was 2 years old. So he basically grew up without a father. And, you know, MMA, as it has for so many other fighters, a big part of his life, and the training, a big part of helping him stay on track. And, you know, just wanted to send him a shout out and condolences on that. But what an interesting part to his story. The more interesting part right now to his story is that was an incredible win, just decimating the knee and destroying his opponent tonight, Jeff, in a really big win for Khalil Rountree over Modestas Bukauskas. And now he's looking for top fights in the welterweight division. He just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, look, and I've known who he is for a long time as well. You know, he made his UFC debut after 4 fights in RFA. You know, now he did have 10 or 11 amateur fights, but you know, he was undefeated. That was a highly anticipated debut, similar to Paddy tonight. You know, when Rountree made his debut in the UFC, struggled a little bit, and what I see tonight and what I hear out of him is it's just a more mature, more experienced guy who realized once he got to the top level of competition in mixed martial arts in the world that it took a little more. You know, it took a little more than the RFA. And so now he's there. You know, he knows it all. There's no surprises now. And we saw that in his performance tonight. Rountree's a very talented fighter, man, very dangerous guy. And the mind is a crazy thing. You know, most of the time in life, your biggest opponent is yourself. You know, and I think that that's what he struggled with a little bit. And now all that self-doubt's gone, and he sees things what it is. He's 31 years old. He's older. But he's still he may not even be in his prime yet. And so for the next 5 years or so, I expect big things out of Rountree, to be honest with you. He's a talented fighter.
He is. And of course, his biggest win, Paul Craig's been on a big-time rise lately after the win over Jamal Hill, and he knocked out Paul Craig in Glasgow, Scotland. Think about that, to go there and do that. So that's his biggest win. He's got the talent. He's got some bad losses on his resume. One of them was overturned to a no contest when his opponent tested positive. But I'm always a fan of a guy who's overcome that kind of adversity. I believe when you're looking at raw, natural talent, strength, and ability, Rountree is as gifted as almost anyone. And you're right. You know, sometimes your number one opponent is right in here. I know for sure I'm about to be 50 in 4 months. And for 48 of those years, at least, my number one opponent was the man in the mirror. And that's the truth, man. That when you reach this level, your number one opponent is always yourself. Do you have the self-discipline to get up and train every day? Do you have the ability to block out distractions and focus on the task at hand? Do you have the ability when adversity hits, not just on a day-to-day basis, but in the middle of a fight when shit goes wrong? Look at TJ Dillashaw, perfect example in his comeback fight against Sandhagen. Blows out his knee, nasty cut on his eye, everything goes out the window. Shit, man, you're in survival mode. I got to find a way to win this fight. Henry Cejudo on 1 foot against Mighty Mouse beat the greatest champion arguably of all time, overcoming that adversity. You know, and against Marlon Moraes with 1 leg and 1 shoulder. Sometimes you're going to be in a situation or situations in there in the heat of battle when you've got to overcome something that would take you out almost any other time in your life, and you're going to have to get by on guts, on adrenaline, and you're going to have to figure out a way to adjust and overcome that adversity. And the biggest thing that fighters, to me, that impresses me the most is the discipline for guys who don't make a lot of money to bring in income, to train every day, guys who have families. I mean, it is really hard to maintain the type of focus that you need to be a great UFC fighter when you got all that other shit going on in your life.
Yeah, man. I mean, the older you get, the more responsibilities get piled on your plate. You know that. I know that. You know that the family, everything. You know your profession, your work, and I just think we saw a much more mature and a much more experienced Rountree tonight. And in his interview, he sounds like he's in a really, really good place. And he's a dangerous man, you know, and I like that he brought that up because it's right, man. You can lose. This is a brutal sport, man. And a lot of shit can happen in there. Great fighters lose to lesser fighters all the time. You know, it only takes one shot. It only takes one thing. It only takes doubt to creep in for 1 second, you know, and you found out a lot about yourself, you know, like Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen. Anderson found out a lot about himself in that fight. You know, you talk about Cejudo on 1 foot. You find out a lot about yourself in that Dillashaw. A lot of people will find the easy way out. You know, and so I agree with what you're saying, man. You see inside a person's soul when they start facing adversity like that. Some people will dig deep, man, and freaking go to hell and back to get the win, and other people find the way out. Rountree's not one of those guys, man. You know, he's just not one of those guys. It looks like we ran out of memory on the memory card there on location. Gonna have to switch that out real quick.
Is that your memory card
or is that
mine,
my
Jeff?
mind? Is that my mind, Jim? Is that friggin'
reading
look,
the memory card?
Oh God, we're gonna find out.
They're reading our minds, Jeff. I mean, this AI thing's going a little bit too far, man. The Patriot Act, everyone talks about.
No, not really. I didn't know if he was gonna rest.
Here we go. So
Strike
what do we got here at the podium?
So I planned on just kind of like, trying to hit him and move and really assess. And I feel like I did really good with takedown defense and grappling. I don't have a lot of grappling time in the octagon. I felt really comfortable there. Man, that Aspinall's got good boxing. But yeah, felt good with that performance.
When do you want to get back in there? I'm assuming you want to keep on this streak.
Yeah, that's a great question. I wouldn't mind a full fight camp. I also don't mind taking these short notice fights. I've had 14 fights in the UFC now. And I think 6 or 7 of them have been short notice. I even took some fights that actually didn't come to fruition. One time there was a visa issue. One time the guy just said no. But I've taken a lot of short notice fights. And I wouldn't mind a full fight camp. I mean, just give me 4 weeks. But, Matt Brown's coming off a really impressive knockout against a guy I was originally matched up with. And I think it would be an exceptional challenge and an honor to share the octagon with him. So, I mean, this is going to be a super respectful call-outs. But if Matt Brown's about it, I'd like a December or January fight with him.
Thank you.
And that would clearly be a fight where lots of hands are being thrown, huh?
Yes, I would hope so.
What I thought was great out there was one, and even the commentary talked about it too. They comment on how you like to throw hands. The guy was coming forward, but you don't stop. You don't go on the back foot. You take the time to actually throw and make contact on a lot of those ones where a lot of other people might run back. They might try to run away. When that opponent is coming straight towards you and he's barreling through, what goes through your mind at that moment?
I saw every punch, even though I got cracked maybe 2 or 3 times, but I saw him coming. And again, so long as I can like get my head out of the trajectory of the damaging punch, I feel really good kind of countering. I do need to clean that up. That's something I've been practicing on day in and day out. Thankfully, Coach Safe is there to help me clean that stuff up. But man, I live for the battle. Right before every fight, I go in the mirror and I look at myself. And I say, like, this is your last moment on earth. I mean, this is a fight to the death, theoretically. I know no one dies. But how are you going to go out? Are you going to, defend your people and survive the war or not? And I like that pressure, and I really like what's at stake. And, the fact that, with a win, with a loss, you're coming out of it okay. It's like a taste of immortality. I go in there knowing if I make a mistake and get cracked, I'm dead. And then sure enough, you always come back too, and it's a fun exercise, very stimulating for the mind, and I couldn't imagine living without it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're the type, you like watching tape of your opponent.
Oh, a tremendous amount, yeah. I give my guys a speech at the gym all the time. I'm like, if you can change your preparation, your lifestyle, and give yourself a 1% chance better of winning, why wouldn't you do it? And then if you do 10 or 20 things like that, you're increasing your chance dramatically, and that's something I do. I have Coach Safe to bounce all my ideas off of. He's always given me the best insight ever. We watch a tremendous amount of tape. I mean, every bit of battle strategy that I can get my hands on, I'll certainly partake in.
How close did to how he performed play out to what you sort of researched and saw in the past?
Almost perfectly. I thought he'd grapple a bit more. He didn't lead with his right hand as much. I say that now. I actually don't remember a lot of the exchanges. One thing I think would benefit him moving forward is to use his jab a bit more. I know he didn't use that much. And I know I checked his first low kick, and he really didn't throw many more after that, and I was happy for that. But no, that was as expected. And man, I'm hitting these guys, and I've dropped guys and knocked guys out, but I'm hitting them, and man, he had a good, strong, durable chin on him that I can feel it in my shoulders and my hands. But it would have been cool to get a finish. But I mean, I'm just looking to do damage, and I definitely did some damage. Come third round, he was bleeding up something fierce.
And when you take a fight that's short notice, do you have time to really sort of game plan for him, or is it more about being reactionary out there?
It's about implementing my own strengths, and I knew I was quicker than him, and I knew I could cut sharp angles against him. And again, the jab was a primary focus. I mean, if you're not fighting with a jab, you're fighting at a disadvantage. It's not like a secret that I have. I mean, every good champion fighter ever uses a good jab, but I feel like using speed was a good strat in this fight, and it worked out.
And lastly, for me, a little birdie told me that your coach's birthday last year was ruined by a loss. Did you want to make sure that you went out there and got a win for his birthday?
More than anything, yeah. So, Coach, happy birthday. I do everything in my power to make you proud and bring a win back to Texas for the team. And I was very happy to get that done unanimously tonight.
Good.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right, Ken, slide it in there.
Well, I'm mute. I was muted by it. There we go. Okay, back on. Jeff Cain, Jim Grieshaber, MMA Weekly, YouTube, UFC Fight Night, Brunson versus Till. And I will tell you what, man, Alex Morano happy with a win tonight. And Tom Aspinall, Jeff, with a big-time finish over Sergey Spivak by TKO. You look at this fight card right now, I mean, every single, minus the Morano-Zawada fight, every single fight's been a TKO. Paddy Pimblett, Khalil Rountree Jr., and Tom Aspinall. So here's a couple things on Aspinall, Jeff. He's got the 4th longest win streak in the UFC heavyweight division. The 4th longest win streak in the UFC behind Cyril Gane, Francis Ngannou, and Vicente Luque, and the 2nd longest active finish streak in the UFC with 4 in a row behind Francis Ngannou with 5. So a nice run for Tom Aspinall and a brutal finish of Sergey Spivak tonight.
Yeah, puts him on a 7-fight win streak, man. And that was a brutal elbow on the inside. Holy shit, Jim. That was as clean of an elbow you're ever going to see land. I mean, at first, when I first saw it, I thought it was a short right hand. And then in the replay, it was just an elbow beautifully placed. Dropped him immediately and finished with follow-up strikes on the ground. Aspinall's a dangerous man. Holy shit, was that a good elbow. One of the knockouts of the night. I know we've had a lot of finishes, but that one was textbook beautiful, man. Yeah, we're already at the main event, Jim. Can you believe that shit? We're already at the main event.
Right, we're already at the main event, and we had no knockouts or TKOs on the prelims, 1 submission, but we have 3 TKOs on the main card. So Paddy Pimblett took some big shots from Luigi Vendramini and able to finish him with a combination of hooks. Pretty cool to see that from Paddy Pimblett. And he wants to fight Conor McGregor, which would be awesome. England against Ireland. I don't have to tell you anything more about that, but he's got a big mouth, and he's going to talk himself into a lot of fights if he continues winning. And he did get rocked, so he overcame his first test early on in the octagon against Vendramini. Khalil Rountree Jr. devastated the face and then the leg of Modestas Bukauskas, and that kick to the leg was brutal. So I could see either one of those guys getting knocked out of the night. But Aspinall's elbow, man, like you said, it looked like a short punch. He's brutal, man. I saw the way he finished Jake Collier last year on Fight Island and the finishes that he's had. And you look at what he did against Andrei Arlovsky, finished him by rear naked choke. And so he's got that submission game as well. But he is finishing people like crazy. I mean, he's got the wins over in Cage Warriors, two in a row by TKO. And then in the UFC, all he's done is finish all 4 of his opponents. So look out for Tom Aspinall quickly rising in the ranks of the UFC's heavyweight division. Do you think that gets him ranked, Jeff? Do you think Aspinall, I mean, he is ranked. He's 13th, excuse me. So do you think he cracks the top 10 after that?
I mean, I'll have to look at who's 12 and 11 and stuff. Look, you can't deny that win streak, and that's so hard to do on this level. And he's finishing everybody. I think that he has a good chance of jumping in the top 10. I don't have the rankings pulled up, but I think he has an excellent chance of jumping in the top 10. There's no reason not to, really, unless somebody else has some better wins that's right in front of him. But I doubt
it. Want the names in front of him? I'll give you the names in front of him right now. Blagoy Ivanov, and Walt Harris and Chris Daukaus are the guys ahead of him. And then Augusto Sakai at number 9, Tybura at number 8. I don't think he's going that far up, but I could see him passing Ivanov and Harris and Daukaus and being number 10.
Yeah, he could absolutely. But like I said, that win streak says everything that you need to know. You can't to go on a win streak like that in this sport. And I'm not even talking about in the UFC, honestly. I mean, in any of these, in any promotion, and I mean from LFA, on. I mean, I'm not even talking about the biggest promotions. A 7-fight win streak's freaking hard to do, man. There's always somebody going to land a punch, or you just don't have it that night, or you don't feel good, or you had a bad weight cut. It's so easy to stumble, and so I think he's got a great chance of jumping into the top 10.
Yep, and just to clarify, Jeff, when I said a 4-fight win streak, that's in the UFC. but he won 3 in a row in Cage Warriors and full contact before he got there. So 7 wins in a row, his first 4 UFC fights, Jeff. And, you know, when you start thinking about a heavyweight who's won 4 in a row to start their career in the UFC, the list gets shorter and shorter. You know what I mean? A guy like Francis Ngannou comes to mind, Cyril Gane comes to mind, Cain Velasquez comes to mind. Very few fighters start their career with 4 straight UFC wins in any division, especially heavyweight.
Yeah, I mean, it just takes one shot at heavyweight, especially the heavyweight division. You know, it's traditionally been hard to go on a win streak, no matter if you're the top guy in the world or not. You know, I mean, it's hard for Stipe to keep a win streak going. It's you know, it's going to be hard for Francis too. You know, and we'll see about Cyril Gane. You know, he's been able to put that win streak together and not have a hell of a lot of adversity, to be honest with you. We'll see when he fights for that title if he's able to keep that going. But it's rare. And yeah, that stands out to me a lot. It's for somebody on the ranking panel. If you got a 7-fight win streak, first 4 fights in the UFC are all finishes, and then you step up in a co-main event slot, and then finish like that in the first round. I mean, I don't know how you don't jump up in the rankings. He could jump up higher than number 10. I mean, you know, the more I'm thinking about it, I just got to crunch the numbers and look and compare records and everything. But he's gonna jump up a pretty decent amount, I would think. And I say that because it's the heavyweight division. You know, outside the top of that division, there's a big drop off.
We've had a ton of long win streaks in the UFC. I think what it was Anderson Silva at like 17 or whatever it was. I can't remember the exact number. But, you know, we've had some pretty long wins, but not in the heavyweight division. That's the clarification here. It's very, very difficult because of what you said. There's Ozzy. We were talking about Ozzy earlier, was shot in the dark off the Ultimate Sin. I think that's what we were doing. Like, Jeff's got the Ozzy hair. We're going and the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne. But I hope you're enjoying it, guys. We're just moments away from Till and Brunson, the main event here on MMA Weekly live stream, UFC Fight Night from the Apex. Jim Grieshaber, Jeff Cain. Hit us up. Hit that subscribe button, the bell on YouTube. We got you in the chat room as well. Really appreciate the contributions in there. Isaac Jamerson is in the house, one of our favorites. He just gave us a $5 super chat, so thank you, Isaac. We really appreciate the love. Demon Child says Till will win because CS picked Brunson for the win, so Till is a guarantee. Who is CS picked Brunson for the win? Who would CS be picking Brunson for the win? That would be, is that somebody else in the chat?
Chael Sonnen? Is it Chael Sonnen?
Oh, Chael Sonnen, maybe. Yep. So maybe. But listen, if anyone's picking Brunson, and Chael's a wrestler. Chael gave the blueprint, by the way, to Chris Weidman on how to beat Anderson Silva, and Weidman took full advantage of that, beat him up on the ground in round 1, caught him with the hook in round 2. Not talking about the second fight where he shattered his leg, talking about the blueprint from Chael Sonnen on that fight in Brazil that he gave the world on Anderson Silva, and Weidman was able to capitalize on that. And that's another thing. When you're at the top, look at Ronda Rousey, Jeff. Everyone's shooting for you. And every time you fight anyone, they're coming up with new and inventive and innovative ways to beat you. The greatest coaches in the world are always going to do that. Shit, man, look at Trevor Whitman. Look at what Trevor Whitman's got coming up in New York. All 3 of the top fights on the card are Trevor Whitman's fighters. 3 in a row at the top of that card are Trevor Whitman's fighters. When you're looking at UFC, 268 coming up in New York. And when you think about UFC 268 and you're talking about where is it? Yeah, Usman Covington too. But you've got Kamaru Usman, you've got Thug Rose, and you've got Justin Gaethje. All 3 of them, and I said them in reverse order. It's Gaethje, Chandler, Namajunas, Weili, and Usman Covington. Gaethje, Rose, and Kamaru are all Trevor Whitman's fighters. So you take the best coaches in the world, and they're figuring out ways to fight you and beat you. And every time you see a fight where they're coming at you, that gives other fighters and other coaches who are watching that fight more ammo in the gun to go back and beat you with. So that makes it even more difficult to stay on top. And speaking of Aspinall's win streak, that he's the champion, but it makes it more and more tough each time out to continue that win streak because everybody who's fighting you is giving other fighters and other coaches more of an opportunity to not only see how you fight, but also to have ways that they could possibly beat you, to look for weaknesses, to look for holes in your game. So you have to keep improving and getting better. And not only that, Jeff, a lot of times you have to do that within a fight. Fighters will take away your number 1 weapon. I am not letting him drop me with that overhand right. You got to find another way to beat him when your number 1 weapon is taken away, as Darren Till gets set to make his walk to the octagon, and that's something that Darren Till's had to do. Coming full circle here, Jeff, here as he gets set to fight Brunson. And I think about Darren Till every time out, like, look, he's a striker. He's not a super tough guy. You can wrestle him. You can beat him that way. Woodley gave the blueprint. But Till has made it very tough for guys to take him down. This is not going to be easy for Brunson to come in here and take down Darren Till. So anyone who's picked Brunson thinking he's just going to come in here and start taking him down, Darren Till's takedown defense is very good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Till's a tough matchup because of his movement and his speed. He's a tough matchup for a ton of people. But you're right. The more you fight, the more fight footage there is on you, and so I can build more of a resume on your tendencies. I mean, if I only see you fight one time, that may or may not be how you really fight most of the time. But once you start having 10 and 11 fights, and I get to look at all the tape, then all of a sudden I'm like, look, he drops his left hand when he does this. He does his tail, like Chuck Liddell, Rashad Evans. I thought it was really interesting when he knocked out Chuck, he said that Chuck makes a face before he throws his big right hand. He makes a face. And so he gave him his tail, and he figured out his tail. And so as soon as he made the face, boom, right hand before Chuck could throw his. So, yeah, man, the longer you're in the sport, the harder it is to maintain that because we have more answers. And the more answers I have, I can formulate a better blueprint. And so, yeah, but getting back to this main event fight, I don't know if I've picked. I mean, I'll probably go with Brunson because I think he has a clear path to victory. But, man, you can't sleep on Darren Till, man. It's been a minute. Till's one of those guys that's still in that point of his career where he's improving every time out. And so I don't know what I'm going to see out of Till tonight. I really don't. I know what I'm going to see out of Brunson, though, to go back to what we were talking about. Brunson's had enough fights. I've seen him fight enough. And Till's had enough fights, but he's still changing a lot, where Brunson's not changing that much right now.
My nephew wrestled at North Carolina Pembroke, and Brunson's a wrestler from there. So, he's got the wrestling pedigree in the background. He's been in the top 5 in the country in his division, which was Division II. So, his wrestling is on point. His takedown average is over 3. His takedown defense is 94%. Till's takedown defense, though, Jeff, is 82%. A little over 8 out of 10 takedowns stuffed. He was dominated by Robert Whittaker, but he did land the elbow that dropped Robert Whittaker. He didn't look great against Kelvin Gastelum, but not many people do look great, even when Kelvin's losing against Kelvin Gastelum. So when you look at Brunson, he's become that guy in the middleweight division, Jeff, who is a win that you have to get as you make your way to the top. And I said it at the top of the show. When I look at the rankings at middleweight, Brunson's a guy who he loses a couple fights, and all of a sudden he's fighting down in the rankings again. And that's happened a couple times now in his career when he lost to Anderson Silva, which wasn't really a loss, but Whittaker, then Silva, and then Souza, then Izzy. But he has to go back and fight a Theodoro and a Heinisch and a Shabazian and then a Kevin Holland to get back to a fight like this. He has to take the long way back, just like Glover Teixeira did to get the title shot against Jan Blachowicz. But every time he loses a big-time fight or two, he drops down. He beats all the guys he has to beat to get back up there. And that's where he is now against number 7 ranked Darren Till. With Brunson coming into this fight, Derek Brunson is ranked right now at, where's he at? He
5.
is ranked
I think 5.
So 7 and 5. So he's got a chance now to get back into the top 4, top 3. It's incredibly packed at the top with Izzy and Whittaker, the champion and the number 1 contender. You got Paulo Costa, number 2, Jared Cannonier, 3, Marvin Vettori, 4, and then Brunson, Jack Hermanson, and Darren Till. So a win for Till puts him in the top 5. Maybe he leapfrogs Vettori, maybe not. But a win for Brunson might actually keep him where he is. Maybe he moves up a spot, maybe 2. But you have a vote. You have Whittaker, Costa, Cannonier, Vettori after Izzy, and Brunson at number 5. Win for Brunson, does he jump any of those guys? Win for Till, how many guys does he jump on your poll, on your ballot?
I would say Brunson jumps Vettori. I don't know, because Brunson he's fought the top of the division. I mean, we know how he matched up with Whittaker. We know how he matches up with Adesanya. That loss to Anderson was a disservice to him because he was, just off that loss to Whittaker, and he won that fight. He won that fight. That was a disservice
to him. Anderson, without a doubt.
Yeah. And so, but Brunson's a proven, middleweight. I mean, he's a proven middleweight. There's no question. He's a top 6 or 7 middleweight. No question about it. What we're going to find out tonight is Darren Till a top 5 middleweight? Because he gets to jump in there with a big win like this. If Till wins, I think he probably just moves to 5 because he's lost a couple of fights recently, and but for Brunson, this is a huge opportunity. This is a huge, huge opportunity. But don't sleep on Till. I mean, Till's a dangerous dude, man. I mean, like whenever you look at stylistic matchups, he's one of the worst stylistic matchups for a lot of people because of his speed and his movement. And even Whitaker found that out. You can't look past Darren Till. And for Brunson, he's got to be real careful closing that distance. I mean, that's going to be the story of this fight is the distance.
Right.
Can Brunson close the distance without getting caught? We're about to find out, man. They're both in the cage or both in the octagon, and they're about to introduce them. This is a great fight. And for this card to be a fight night card, this is a pretty damn big fight to headline one of these cards that's not on ESPN, that's on ESPN Plus. This is a huge fight for one of these type of cards.
Absolutely. Who do you guys have in the chat room? Let us know who's going to win this fight, what round, how, and why. Give us your best analysis. Hey, bring your A game. We might even read it here live on the show and give you the props that you deserve. But I see Darren Till is the favorite in this fight, as high as -150. Jeff, the opening line was -138 with Brunson at +105. So -150 +120. So -150 for Till, +120 for Brunson. And there are other variations of those odds, but pretty close all the way across the board.
Surprises me a little bit.
Not a huge favorite, but still Darren Till favored. Come in. Brunson doesn't get a lot of respect, though. I wouldn't expect him to be favored. He really doesn't get a lot of respect for a good fighter.
No, he's
a good fighter. He's a great fighter.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I would expect Brunson with his wrestling pedigree, like when I look at this fight stylistically, Brunson closes the distance, takes down Darren Till, and does what he did against Kevin Holland and makes Till look bad for this fight. For Darren Till, you've got to rotate, move laterally, not stand in front of Brunson and jab a lot, and then fire off your power shots. And you got to be careful using kicks because he's a wrestler. I would favor Brunson slightly, only because I feel like he has the better resume. He's been in there against the better competition, and he has succeeded in some of those fights. And he has the blueprint. But like I said, Till's one of those guys that looks different every time he comes out. And so he's at that point in his career where, you can game plan for him, but that's not the Till that shows up. I would not be shocked if Darren Till sleeps Brunson in the first round. I would not be shocked at all. And
Brunson, Jeff, won 7 of his first 8 UFC fights. He's lost to the cream of the crop. Obviously Whitaker, Silva, and Adesanya are as good as it gets. And at the top of the division, that's who he's lost to. And also Jacare, who's now retired. Great career for Jacare. But Darren Till has the win over Gastelum at middleweight. And other than that, he hasn't really picked up any big wins in the middleweight division. So he fought Masvidal at 170, had a good run against him and almost finished him earlier on in that fight. But quickly we see Darren Till, Jeff, very aggressive coming at Brunson.
Yeah.
Brunson launching those counter lefts. So both guys with dynamite in their fists early on throwing bombs at each other. Both southpaws lined up, and that is pretty cool seeing this striking. But Darren Till very clearly coming out looking for the early finish that you just talked about, and he hasn't fought in over a year since that fight against Whitaker in Abu Dhabi on July 26th when he lost a unanimous decision on Fight Island. But Darren Till with long arms, always going to cause a problem there. Brunson's going to want to stay out of that pocket, and that pocket extends a little bit. That striking distance extends a little bit against a guy like Till who just popped him with a left.
His left hand is landing early in this fight. His left hand's landing early. That's not a good sign for Brunson. But that's what I'm saying. With that year layoff, I don't know what Till's going to look like. But he looks good right now. Of course, I say that, and he just got
nice
double
takedown by Brunson. Yeah, Brunson shot right in under an overhand left from Till and took him right down. 343, and Brunson keeping Till away from the edge of the cage and the fence. So he's got a good 2 to 3 feet of room to work with here. And he's got Darren Till in a tough spot very early on. So this is what we talked about, takedown defense for Till. But also, once you're on the ground against the guy who likes to maul you like Brunson, throwing elbows at him, Darren Till is exactly where we didn't want to see him and exactly where he didn't want to be right now.
Yeah, and Brunson is exactly where he wants to be. Yeah, see, this is how I felt the fight would go. Now, look, we're in the first round. Doesn't mean like this is going to happen for the whole fight. But Till's on his back against an accomplished wrestler who's used to this right here. This is exactly where he wants to be. He's going to try to work elbows. And for Till, he's got to get to his feet, right? Or get a stand-up. But this is good for Brunson. I think this fight actually is good for both of them. Till landed his left hand early. He landed like 3 of them. and he was able to keep his distance, and then Brunson was able to secure a takedown. So both of them are having success, but right now Brunson's having more success.
And he's almost got a full mount on him, not quite, but he's postured up in great position with one leg in between his two legs, pounding out Darren Till. Darren Till's in big trouble at 230. He better do something because Brunson, and by the way, Brunson with 16 takedowns on his 4-fight win streak, this gives him 17 in his last 5, and you still got over 2 minutes left. Till has absorbed some pretty big shots, some punches, and some elbows.
Yeah, this is a nightmare for Till. This is not what right now. You're just wanting to survive the round. If you can get up to your feet, get up to your feet. But what he needs to do more than anything right now is to keep Brunson from posturing up and landing those damn elbows. He's got to control Brunson's posture, or he's not going to make it out of the first round.
Those elbows are brutal, Jeff. Brunson's landed about 5 of those left elbows that are just crushing the temple of Darren Till. I'm surprised he hasn't opened up any cuts yet, not that I can see. But Darren Till's been on the ground for almost a minute now, and Brunson with already 26 ground strikes on Darren Till. Make it 27. He just hit him with another elbow. And now Brunson right back in that postured up. Oh, wow. I thought Till had some daylight there, but he didn't. He rolled out of there.
Yeah, those are huge punches and elbows. Huge. Till's tough as nails, man. But he's in a lot of damn trouble. I think he's fully mounted right now.
Fully mounted. He's got the full mount. Just got it. Yep. And Till's got now with the fence, he can spin around. He's got himself up against the cage a little bit, so now he can help himself out by using the cage to get up to his feet. But Brunson all the way up. Till has a chance. He gets up. Darren Till's up. Man, what a tough dude. What a tough dude Darren Till is. Patting Brunson on the back saying good job, but I can't believe Darren Till made it to his feet. Wow.
I can't either. Brunson started landing big shots, and he left too much space. And to Darren Till's credit, he recognized that, kicked out, and got the hell out of there. Props to Darren Till for absorbing all that damage. Right now, we're back to standing, and we're going to see if Till can't get some of that back.
Wow, he got mauled on the ground, and he got hit with some huge elbows and punches. His face is going to be swollen up, but what a tough dude, Darren Till. He's got a lot of size at middleweight. You can see that he's much more comfortable here, but man, Brunson just really looking good here. And you want to say that Till was getting mauled and Till was eating all these shots. Brunson looks fantastic, man. Those last 4 fights to get here and now against Till, he looks like a completely different fighter than he's looked in the past.
Yeah, and look, Brunson's the higher ranked fighter, right? I mean, we can forget about the odds and everything. Brunson's the higher ranked fighter. I would expect him to win, but man, Till is so dangerous on his feet, and he's got range. And so he's one of those guys like Kelvin Gastelum hits you when you don't think he can. You're like, there's no way with my reach advantage that he's going to get to me from here, and then he gets to you. And I feel like Till sort of has that same thing. He's got a long left hand, hits you way out there when you think you're out of range. And so I'm not counting Till out of this fight. It's second round, start standing. It's a reset. But he cannot get taken down again. What we do know so far is that if Brunson takes him down, he's going to maul him.
Yeah, and Brunson, that double leg was a thing of beauty, man. He ducked under the overhand left from Till and shot in there, man, looking like Eric Anders in his old college football days at the University of Alabama, shooting in there on that double and taking him down. But Darren Till's got a big problem, Jeff. Not only
his eye,
it's the right
his
eye. His
right eye. Oh, man.
Rolling shut. It's black and blue. He can barely see out of it. And that was the spot where Brunson was crushing him with punches and elbows. So we start round number 2 with Darren Till in a whole lot of trouble. And Isaac in the chat says R.I.P. Till.
Till's eye. Yeah, Till's eye's not completely swollen shut, but it's got a lot of swelling just under his eye, and his vision is probably compromised. Because anytime you get the swelling, your vision is compromised, period. I'd be shocked if it's not.
And your right eye is where the left hand of Brunson's coming from. Brunson looking for another takedown. Till fighting it off with his life. Good job by Darren Till. It looked like he was going for a ride for a minute, able to find his way over against the fence, and now Brunson loves this. He's got him pinned up against the cage and working for body positioning here, but awesome job by Darren Till, Jeff, to avoid that takedown because that would have been disastrous with 4 minutes left in the round.
Yeah, I'd say Darren Till. Yeah, that now Brunson didn't shoot a double leg on that one. He tried to do a high clinch takedown and kind of toss him, and Till was having none of that. and now they're separated. And
there's a double leg. Look out! Oh wow, he almost got that one. Good job by Till. Wow, that was close. That was really close.
Yep. So far we've had 3 takedowns attempts. Till has stuffed 2 of them, so that's good news for Till. But Brunson has a round in the bag right now. You know, he's got a round in the bag. So it's going to be interesting how he approaches the rest of this fight. Do you just do enough, or do you go for the finish?
I mean, Darren Till right now, he's to fend off those 2 takedowns is great. But if I'm Brunson, I'm looking just to take him down and finish him right now. I mean, you don't want to let a guy hang around. Darren Till fighting to survive. He's become a defensive fighter. His offense hasn't been there since the very beginning of round number 1. But now here they are standing in the middle of the octagon again. And Brunson saying, hey, here I am, come get me. Well, with Darren Till, Jeff, at any point in time, his striking is so good and that left hand is so devastating, he can get that on you and put you down. But Brunson smartly, right up against the cage, right in for a takedown again. And this time he gets it, wrapped him up, picked him up, took him down. And with 2:50, almost the exact same time on the clock as the takedown in round number 1, Brunson scores his second takedown of the night.
Till, when Brunson clinched, Till tried to land a knee. And as soon as he threw it, Brunson changed levels and took him down. That was a mistake on Till's part.
That doesn't look like a top-level fighter making a mistake. That's an inexperienced guy making a mistake like that against a guy, like, in my opinion, against Brunson. Easy for me to say, but I'm surprised Till did that.
I think he's getting desperate. Now, look, what I was getting ready to say before Brunson got this takedown is if I'm Till or if I'm Till's coaches, I'm reiterating or pushing to him constantly that maybe Brunson punched himself out. Brunson threw a lot of punches and elbows the first round. Relax. He's going to gas. You got this next round to survive. But look, he's got 2 minutes left to go on this round, and he's on the bottom of Brunson again. Now,
Till's got to watch a Darce choke here too.
Yeah, he's doing a better job of controlling Brunson's posture. Yeah, he's doing a better job of controlling Brunson's posture this time around. But we'll see how long-lived that is.
He's got his arms locked around the back of Brunson, holding on for dear life because he knows if he lets go, he's basically screwed. And Brunson now
he's hoping for a stand-up
around, and Darren Till's in a prime spot for a Darce choke too. Brunson looking for side mount, and he's got the leg. Till's got the legs locked around Brunson's left leg, and the arms locked around the back, which is pretty much saving him right now. So he's fought him off for a little over a minute. Brunson has been unable to land the devastating ground shots, like you said, Jeff, that he landed in round number 1. But he's 2 out of 4 on takedowns. Till's had no offense at all since the beginning of round 1. Derek Brunson is dominating this fight right now. Absolutely dominating.
Yes. 100%. The first takedown did this. You know, Brunson took Till down and roughed him up, and now Till is a little nervous about stepping forward.
Watch that left arm. Jeff.
That takedown was hugely important for Brunson because I think it's changed the way Till has to fight this fight. He's going to get him in an arm triangle choke, too, if he doesn't watch out.
Watch this. Yep.
I mean, he's going to have to switch sides to do it. But, you know, Brunson seems content with to sit here in half guard and pepper him with shots. Now he's up 2 rounds, right? So if he wins the 3rd, this fight's over unless Till does something crazy.
Man. The Darce choke, the triangle choke, I mean, all those things. Brunson right now, he's got the back of Till sort of. So now you're looking at a possible rear naked. But Till's up. Darren Till gets up. Look at this dude. What a tough. You know what? Respect to Darren Till. Because not many guys get up with Brunson on top of him twice like that in 2 rounds and keep scrapping and fighting. Good on you, Darren Till.
Yeah. See, this is where I was talking about earlier where people find a way out. Darren Till's not looking for a way out. He's still looking for a way to win. Now, I don't know how long that's going to last. I mean, if he keeps getting taken down and keep getting, elbowed and punched, maybe he does look for a way out, but not right now. Darren Till got back up to his feet, and like I said, round 3 starts standing. That knee was not a good idea.
No, but look at Brunson going down, and Till is, I mean, when you get a wrestler who gets that low on you, when Brunson gets you that low, you're in trouble. And he was able to wrap his arms around those legs of Till pretty easily that time. And I mean, you just can't give him that level. You can't give Derek Brunson. It's easy for me to say, easy, but if you want to be a top-level fighter and you want to be a championship contender in any division, you have got to do a better job of keeping that level. And you mentioned, Jeff, the knee opened him up for that takedown, and that's a reflex. That's something that's an instinctive thing for a guy like Till. But against a guy like Brunson, you have to train yourself to avoid those instincts. The good news for Till, the eye didn't take much more damage. He didn't need a lot of strikes in that round. So,
that eye is so bad, Jim. That eye is so bad.
It's bad. Here we go with round number 3, Jeff. Brunson and Till in the center of the octagon. Clearly a dominating performance. Brunson, the live odds on him are minus 390 right now. Remember, he started at about minus 140. So clearly Brunson dominating this fight. If you're looking for some money and you want to take a shot on Darren Till by KO or TKO in this round, you'll make yourself a boatload. And Till just rocked him with a left.
Landed a hard left hand. Till's getting a little bit more desperate now. And he's putting
Brunson's
some
a
heat
little
on these
woozy.
punches.
Brunson just missed with a haymaker.
Yeah. There's another left hand by Till.
Oh, nice job. Darren Till piecing him up a little bit. He landed a right also. Brunson wants no part of Darren Till on the feet. Good job by Brunson to get right in there on his chest. Oh, Till with a knee to get him off and then an elbow on the way out. Darren Till in round number 3 coming alive, Jeff.
Yeah, he has to do something. He's down 2 rounds. And if he loses this round, then he has to have a big round to win a decision. He would need a finish. So this round is huge for Darren Till. If he loses this round, his path to victory is only a finish. And for Brunson, I don't know, man. Maybe he's taking a little bit off. I don't think that's the case. I think that Till just came out and decided, I'm going to start landing shots.
Brunson misses an uppercut. The 3-time Division II college wrestling All-American at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. As I mentioned, my nephew wrestled there. A pretty good program. And Brunson, I mean, look at that physique. He's undefeated with the blonde hair. He's got the takedowns going in full effect tonight. But so far in this round, Till uses some leg kicks and a big left by Darren Till.
Another
one. Oh, Brunson's in trouble. Look out, Jeff. Brunson desperately going for a takedown. Till has him in a choke. And Brunson's got those arms wrapped in on a double leg. Till desperately tries to fight it off, and he can't do it.
Mounted.
Oh, Brunson.
He's mounted.
And full mount now for Brunson. What a takedown by Brunson. That was as high level as you're going to see. And now Till's
Brunson
in big
has
trouble.
Brunson has to fix that.
3 minutes left.
Yeah, Brunson
in the round.
He just leans to the right and doesn't keep his hands up until just hits him.
Tap. He's out.
That's it.
Got him by rear naked.
Dude, I tell you what, that fight had changed, Jim. That fight had changed dramatically before that.
Darren Till had come to life and landed some big good. Derek Brunson to absorb those shots, to get that takedown, and to get that finish on the ground. Derek Brunson is a monster at middleweight.
Till was like one shot.
Loses again.
Yeah. Till was like one shot away from finishing that. I mean, he had Brunson in all kinds of friggin' trouble right there. That was what a fight. What a damn fight, man. That's Till's tough, man. You can never question that about that guy. He fought till the damn end. But I mean, I thought he was getting ready to finish Brunson. I swear I did. He lands this huge left right here. They're showing the replay, and look how close Brunson
almost
is to hitting the ground.
Almost dropped him with that left.
And then he lands another one right there to the back of right behind the ear, and then another one, and a right, and another left. I mean, he was one shot away, Jim. One shot.
No, and Brunson on one side of the octagon ate those shots, and Till came in looking for the finish. Brunson immediately shot down, carried him across the octagon. Till fought it off with everything he had, eventually succumbed to the takedown, and the third takedown in 3 rounds for Brunson. Till gave up his back trying to get up, and Brunson immediately choked him out. And I'll tell you what, I did not see Brunson. If you get a chance to go back and watch this highlight, guys, that's one of the most impressive displays of eating huge shots. You're backed up against the cage looking like you're going to be finished. You duck down, pick up his legs, carry him across the octagon. Till fought it with everything he had, and eventually, oh my God, Derek Brunson. That I'll tell you, both guys impressed the hell out of me, Jeff. Big time in this fight.
Well, Darren Till was getting beat bad through the first 2 rounds. He come out in the third. He started planting his feet on the punches, putting his weight down and landing hard shots. And he had Brunson in all kinds of trouble. And I mean, to the point where I think he was one shot away from sleeping him. And then Brunson desperately changed levels, rushed, in and got the takedown to his credit. And because Till was trying to fight it so much, he ended up getting mounted when they hit the ground. Where if he had just succumbed to that takedown earlier, he probably wouldn't have got mounted. But that's a testament to how much he just was trying to fight that, man. Till showed his friggin' toughness tonight. Second
most finishes in middleweight history, now tied with 9 for Brunson. Anderson Silva, of course, number 1 with 11. These takedowns were as high level can get. And look, Darren Till, this is not, something where Brunson is picking up a win over a guy that he should easily beat. Darren Till, the guy with title aspirations and a guy who many people thought could get there. And had he fought Whitaker again, had he fought Adesanya, Till has a better shot. And he was a game opponent for Brunson. But now you look at Brunson, he's the only guy, and you look at his wrestling right now, Jeff, with guys like Costa and guys like Cannonier and guys like Vettori, who's also a wrestler. Vettori's the other wrestler at the top of the division. But when you look at those guys at the top, he's already lost to Izzy. He's already lost to Whitaker. But he's a much improved version of Derek Brunson. And nobody wants to face a guy with takedowns like this. Nobody.
No, he has to really watch that leaning way off, because Izzy and Whitaker are just going to kick him in the head. Like when he leans with his hands down like that away from the punch, they're just going to meet him with a kick. Now maybe he'll know that going into those fights and have a different game plan. I didn't like that in Brunson, but he picked up another win. He's on this long win streak, and you can't deny his wrestling prowess, man. And when he's on top of you, he does damage.
Who do you want to see him fight next, Jeff? You look at those rankings, man. You've got Izzy and Whitaker. Costa, Cannonier, and Vettori are the 3 guys ahead of him. Jared Cannonier came off a very impressive win over a game Kelvin Gastelum in his last fight. Paulo and Vettori each lost to Izzy their last time out. Paulo was last year. Vettori was just recently in June.
Does Paulo have a fight?
Who do you want to see Brunson fight next?
Does Costa have a fight lined up?
He was supposed to fight Whitaker, remember? And Kelvin took that fight.
I put him in there with Paulo. I put him in there with Paulo for 2 reasons. It's a tough matchup for Paulo, and you can get rid of him. Because right now I don't think the UFC's high on Paulo or Vettori. And now they're not high on Brunson either, but I think that Brunson's a safer bet to get to the top of the division than either of those guys. And plus, I'm just not a big fan of Paulo right now.
Paulo's supposed to fight Vettori. That's the one that's coming up.
Okay.
He's supposed to fight Vettori. Okay. So that takes those 2 guys out.
Let it ride.
I mean, I'm not going to believe it until I see it after everything. You know what I mean?
Then if I'm Brunson, I let this ride, because if Izzy wins, Whitaker's out of it, and you might get that shot. You might get it. And let this top kind of play out for a minute. I don't know who I want to fight, but if I'm Brunson, I don't want to fight anybody lower than me. Not on that win streak. I just don't agree with it. It's like what Gaethje said. I didn't work my way to this point for that shit. I worked my way to this point to fight the top guys, and I'm not going to go down and fight somebody lower than me when I've put in the time and I have the resume to justify me getting a bigger fight. With Vettori and Costa already being booked, and I thought they were, but I couldn't remember because, like you said, Costa was supposed to fight Whitaker, and everything gets crazy.
Right.
I say Brunson waits. I think Brunson waits right now.
You don't want Brunson and Cannonier? I would love to see Brunson and Cannonier.
I would too, but I'm saying if I'm Brunson, I wait for Izzy and Whitaker, and I wait for Paulo and Vettori, and then see if I can't get a title fight. And if that falls through, then fight whoever the hell they put in front of you. But lobby for a title fight right now. It's because if Izzy wins, that takes Whitaker out. Izzy just beat Vettori. Paulo's, I think, further away from a title shot than he's ever been because of his just attitude and stupidity. And so Brunson's right there. Brunson's right there. Although he's already been beaten, it's been long enough that you could run it back now. Especially
but he's at 5 and Cannonier's at 3. If he's at 5 and Cannonier's at 3, and neither one of them have a fight, and Costa's fighting Vettori 2 and 4, Whitaker and Izzy 1 in the champ, so that makes sense at least from the standpoint of the rankings. So if you're either guy, what you're saying is either guy should wait it out and see, and not risk the loss, right? Is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. I get it.
And look, I gotta apologize because I usually know who's fought who and all that. Look, I had a crazy week last week for those that don't know, and so I'm behind on things.
Yeah, I forgot about Costa and Vettori too, Jeff. And I think half the world. Can you imagine anything more cringy right now than those 2 guys on the mic? Holy shit! I mean, they need some work.
I don't even want to watch it. I don't even like Henry Cejudo is going to cringe over that. Mr. Cringe himself is going to cringe.
Man, that guy got under my skin. He just irritated me so bad every time he talked that week I'm the one who asked the question at the press conference. People called me an instigator. All I did was ask Izzy how much better he had gotten since he fought Vettori last time. And Vettori starts screaming on this, fight. He had, and Izzy's going, that's roid rage. That's roid rage. I control your career. And Vettori fell right into Izzy's trap, and he started screaming and yelling, and he played himself so badly on that fight week. If I'm Dana White, I'm just muting his microphone. Like, dude, just stop. Please stop, man.
He came off as almost unstable. And then Paulo came off as unstable after all that shit he said after the Abu Dhabi
Drank
fight.
a bottle of wine. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, if that's what you think you do before a title fight, then I almost catch it. Paulo, see, this is kind of funny because you're down on Vettori right now. I'm so down on Paulo that if I were Dana, I would have considered cutting him. I would have considered cutting him from the organization after saying all that shit. And if that's the way you're going to take a title fight, then I don't want you in my organization anyway, right? Then don't
not
sleep
help himself out by hanging out with Logan Paul and trying to take the Jake and Logan Paul approach. When you have multiple fights left on your contract and you start complaining about, and Dana White will come out and say, as he did, he said, hey man, draw some people, man, get some eyeballs. You'll fight out your contract and then you're free to do what you want.
And it's sad because
Paulo's
a beast. Yeah, and it's sad because Paulo's a friggin' beast, man.
And he's a good dude. I like him a lot. Very nice guy.
He's just
very nice.
Whoever's in his ear, man. Like, I feel it's different. Like, I feel Paulo, the people around him are advising him terribly. Where Vettori, I just feel like that's who he is, right? That's going to be harder to fix with Vettori. For Paulo, I feel like, shut up, quit telling him all this bullshit, and go in there and win. Go in there and win, and then Paulo, you can start negotiating contracts and renegotiating and start making demands. But you aren't in a place to do that right now. And so whoever told Paulo that he did him a huge disservice.
I just realized, Jeff, we have another week off next week. As I was looking at the upcoming schedule and the UFC, they're showing the Vegas skyline. I was just up there for the day last week, really enjoyed it, and it was good to get back to Vegas. It'll be good to see.
But we don't, Jim.
We're going
to be covering Vitor Belfort beating the shit out of an old, decrepit Evander Holyfield.
Oh, that's right. We have no UFC show next week. You're right. We have the Triller event, which, by the way, they're moving the whole event to Florida because California wouldn't sanction Holyfield and Vitor. And so now you got Vitor. But did you just say Vitor beating the shit out of Evander Holyfield? Did I hear that right? In the boxing ring on Triller next week?
Yes. Yeah. Evander's too. If you can fight at Evander's age, 58. And Vitor's a guy who has boxing. Vitor's not your regular MMA guy coming over there. Vitor's primary MMA background is boxing, right? Yep. I mean, yes, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, 100%, but he's always been a boxer his whole career. That's his bread and butter. And he's going to go in there in shape against a guy who didn't even know he had a fight last week. But Holyfield's a veteran. Holyfield's going to clinch him up, grab him like Holyfield does, probably headbutt him 6 or 7 times as well. And,
no kidding. Not a fan of his.
And we're going to see how that plays out. But yes, I think Vitor was going to beat Oscar because Oscar's so not fight ready, right? I mean, it's been so far removed from the ring that I don't even consider him Oscar De La Hoya anymore. He's just an older guy who's got a terrible past, who's still trying to stay relevant and maybe bit off more than plus Vitor's a lot bigger than Oscar. He's not a lot bigger. He's probably going to be smaller than Holyfield.
No, and Oscar won 11 world titles in 6 weight classes, and he fought, super featherweight and lightweight all the way up to middleweight. But interesting, Vitor's a heavyweight and a light heavyweight, right? So Oscar was fighting a bigger, stronger guy in that case. But Holyfield was obviously the heavyweight champ and multiple divisions as well. But you know what they're doing? They're trying to use Vitor now as a guy who gets beat by Holyfield, and they're trying to set up 59 or 50, however, Tyson 55, Holyfield 58. People are going to want to see Tyson and Holyfield fight again.
And see, that's what I don't like about this shit.
Boxing's reduced to, man. Boxing is a circus carnival show. The only thing that people care about with boxing now are these carnival fights. I mean, I'll have fun hosting the show with you. I'll laugh at them along with the rest of the world. I'll laugh as Jake Paul's the only boxer drawing ants to a picnic. I'll laugh along with everybody else. But for anybody to take boxing seriously again, and there are some great fighters out there. Errol Spence, there's some great fighters. Bud Crawford, David Benavidez, some great fighters. No one knows who the heck they are, Jeff. These circus shows are what we get. And by the way, speaking of circus shows, Tito and Anderson on the same card.
God, Anderson, I hope, Anderson. But I'm going to say this about Jake Paul, and I'm out of the loop a little bit. Like I said, I'm kind of playing catch up this week. Did he donate money to everybody's purse on that fight card?
Jake Paul did, yeah.
Okay, so
Joshua, or what's his name? Joshua's brother Fury, didn't take it, and his guy didn't take it, but whatever.
Yeah, and the female fighter refused it because she was friends with him. Okay, so I have to shut up about him. Like when I talked about Conor McGregor and Tito and those guys talk about fighter pay but not really doing anything about it, Jake Paul just shut me the hell up on that, right? He just made sure everybody on that damn – and so what's crazy about this, Jim, is the longer the Jake Paul, that dumbass Jake Paul, the YouTube video, the Vine guy, the idiot in the suicide forest in Japan ends up being putting his money where his mouth is. You know what I mean? And so Jake Paul's kind of growing on me. He's still a terrible boxer. Boxer. But I'm like, holy shit, the guy put his money where his mouth is. That's what I've always complained about, is that you can talk about fighter pay, but until you're going to make sure that guy fighting the first fight on the preliminary card is making more money, then I don't really want to hear your shit. Jake Paul, I have to listen to him now. He has shut me up. I can't say a damn thing about Jake Paul. I can't.
Scale of 1 to 10. What scale of 1 to 10? What's your interest in watching Jake Paul's next fight? And scale of 1 to 10, what's your interest in next week's Holyfield, Vitor, Silva, Tito? I mean, I started joking around with my friend calling it Trillator. Because Trillator. Bellator would have like Royce and Shamrock in it. Yeah.
My interest in Vitor and Holyfield is probably a 3. I'm interested to see if Holyfield's in shape at his age, and I always like seeing Tito get punched. So I mean, it's a 3. For Jake Paul's next fight, and it's not the fight. I will say this: I do get drawn into the spectacle of the Jake Paul events, right? It's like the lead up to it. They know what the hell they're doing. They are very intelligent. They come off as idiots. Like if you like I said, if I'm judging him on his YouTube videos and his Vine videos, that guy's an idiot. But then if I take a step back and look at what he's actually doing, I'm like, man, he wants you to think he's an idiot, but he's not an idiot.
And if you judge by his fiance, he's a hero.
Well, that's where I'm at now. I mean, that's kind of where I am now. I thought that he was a joke and this is all stupid, and it is. And he is kind of a joke of a boxer, but he's doing right back. He's doing right back. He's using his fame and his popularity to get real boxers paid. And so I have nothing bad to say about that kid.
Nothing bad to say about Jake, but I have to ask you this, man. If Anderson Silva just picked apart Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., and the only reason that was a split decision is because someone was paid off, Silva dominated that fight. What does Tito Ortiz, does he need the money that bad? I mean, I hate to, is that a rhetorical question at this point for Tito? I like Tito. I've met him. I've hung out with him a couple times, limited. I don't want to say like I've hung out and partied with him. I've talked to him in Vegas a few times around like fight weeks and stuff like that. And I actually like Tito. I'm one of the few who has good things to say about him. Tito has a tremendous legacy in our sport. He's done a lot. He did a lot to help get the UFC where it needed to get to that next level for Lesnar and Ronda and Conor to take it further. But, Chuck needed Tito to be Chuck. Let's be real, right? To fully be Chuck all the way. Yeah. He needed that heel Tito Ortiz. So does Tito really just need the money? Because if he watched Anderson Silva box Chavez, there's no way he thinks he has an Ice Cube's chance in hell against Anderson Silva.
God, I don't think that he does. Look, I know Tito, and I've known Tito. I've been around Tito. I've talked to Tito a lot back in the day. Tito's not a bad guy, and I'll say that. Tito's not.
You traveled the world with Tito, man. You traveled the world with Tito and Chuck and them back in the day.
Tito's a good dude. Like, what I don't like about Tito is that he's such a. I don't know how to say this without being really insulting.
Well, that's never stopped you before.
I know.
Wait, let me get you primed up. Hold on, guys. I'm going to get Jeff Cain primed up and ready to go to be the real Jeff Cain.
Yeah,
Conor McGregor's great. Conor McGregor's great. There you go, Jeff. I got you ready.
It's what it is with Tito is I just don't feel like Tito's that intelligent. You know, I mean, he's like, I'm fighting for the freedom of the troops, and I'm like, what did you just fucking say? And just stuff that he does, man, and stuff that he says, it just bothers me. But I will say this: I've been around Tito. Tito is a generous person. Tito is great with the fans. Yeah. Tito is not an asshole. He is not. He is not.
He bought me a drink in Vegas. He bought me a drink one time.
Tito gave me a ride back to the hotel one night, personally, you know, because I was in no way, shape, or form going to get back to that hotel without Tito Ortiz. That's just the way it was that night. And Tito's a nice dude, man. I mean, Tito knew that I was a Chuck fan. He's a nice guy. That's not what I hate on Tito. It's not even. I like to see Tito lose, but I don't.
And without Tito, Jeff, without Tito, we would probably not have seen Chael Sonnen and Conor McGregor with the trash talk. Tito was the first guy to really make that an art form.
Dude, what he did to Ken Shamrock. Now I'll say that I did like Tito during his taunting and just. He had Ken Shamrock losing his friggin' marbles, right, all the time, and I thought that was hilarious. You know,
Ken Shamrock was losing. You think Vittori was bad? Ken Shamrock was. Oh my God.
Yeah. And I'm not a big, huge Ken Shamrock's a legend. I get that. I've also met Ken Shamrock a few times. Ken Shamrock's not Tito Ortiz. Ken Shamrock is kind of a different cat, man. He comes from a different world, a different mentality, and it's not my mentality. I don't have to be on edge, you know, like in fight mode every fucking second of the day. And I feel like that's the way it was whenever I was around Ken. Like, I don't know. I don't really even want to get too much into Ken because Ken is a legend. But I just felt like Ken would like try, like it was just stupid, over the top. Like you meet Ken, he'll shake your hand as hard as he can and stare you in the eye and pull you in close and shit. And I'm like, Ken, relax, dude. I'm a 145-pound journalist with 2 fake hits. You know,
I still remember Dana like it was yesterday going, Ken Shamrock owes us money, and I will get that. Remember that whole charade back and forth with Ken Shamrock pissed off at the UFC? And
but
Dana
I'm not,
White's
look,
like, what the hell is Ken Shamrock talking about? Ken Shamrock owes us money. Oh, my God.
And I'm not knocking Ken, man. Ken is a legend, and the Lion's Den, you know, that was the early UFC, man. The Guy Metzger.
And he crossed over to the WWF at the time, too, in the Attitude Era, which is now
and
the
there wouldn't be a Tito. Yeah, there wouldn't be a Tito without Ken.
Hey, Tom, congratulations to your right. Do you feel like, you know, you're starting to develop into a legitimate contender in this division? I mean, that was an impressive victory for you. Do you feel like you're ready for some of the more elite guys?
I think so. I want to fight a ranked guy, like I know Sergey was ranked. I just want to fight guys that are, you know, around my ranking. I believe in earning your title shot. I don't believe in the hype train pushing you to a title shot. I believe in earning it. So I want to fight the guy above me. Some guy who just interviewed me, he brought up Blagoj Ivanov. That's a fight I would love. He's a very durable guy. I have a lot of respect for him. He's been around for a long time, and he is so tough. And I want to see if my power and speed, I want to see how that does against someone like that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting fight. When you look at the very top guys, you know, the guys at the top of the division, what do you think is the next step for you to get there? Where do you have to improve to make that leap?
I need a lot more experience before I fight them guys. I'm not ready for them guys yet. This doesn't mean I'm not confident. This does not mean I'm not confident. This means I'm very confident in my ability, but I'm also confident that I need to be ready to beat these guys. So I'm not in a rush. I've just turned 28. I've got another 10 years, and people better get used to seeing me around because I ain't going anywhere.
And I know it had to be disappointing not to be in London and have a big crowd going crazy there. You had a few, you know, fans here that were cheering your name. I mean, what was it like, you know, knowing that mentally when you were in London, what a big ovation you would have gotten and how, you know, keyed up you would have been compared to doing it here with a very small crowd?
Well, that's what I've been saying all week is I want to fight in front of a crowd because I don't know how I'm going to react with 20,000 people screaming, booing, throwing drinks, having a piss in a cup and throwing it. I don't know how I'm going to react to that. I've never done that before. The most people I've fought in front of is 1,000, maybe 1,500. So I want that to be the next step in my career, is fighting in front of people, because I don't want to be getting up to the top 10 and top 5 and never fought in front of anybody before. So when this London card was cancelled, I was upset because I'm not just in this thing to learn like to win fights and smash people and all that. I'm in that for that as well, but I'm also in this thing to learn about myself. And I don't know how I'm going to react, so I'd like to do that next for sure.
And finally, for me, you didn't think it was going to be a problem in terms of late switch of opponent, but now that you're in there, I mean, did it work out the way you kind of thought, and did you feel like things went the way you had trained for?
Yeah, well, I've actually trained for Spivak before, even though we didn't fight, so I know what Spivak's all about. Spivak's a very, very durable guy. To be honest with you, I'm not trying to sound like cocky or anything, but I was in first gear in that fight because I know that he waits for his opponents to get tired before he starts to attack. So I was just taking my time in there, man. I wasn't doing no explosive movements or throwing a million shots. I was just in there playing and feeling my way into the fight, really. So, but massive respect to Sergey, man, taking the fight on a week's notice. What a man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Tom. Were you surprised that, we know that Sergey's a durable guy. Were you surprised that when you landed the elbow that he went down, or did you, as soon as you connected, you knew, oh, that got him?
My elbow is actually a bit sore leaning on it like this. The guy's got a tough head. No, he didn't see the elbow. That's why it hurt him, because I threw the knee into the body, I believe, and then an elbow over the top. So it's the ones that you don't see. I don't have crazy power. I'm not like a Francis Ngannou or anything like that. I'm just super, super fast. And these guys don't see the shots, so that's the ones that hurt these guys.
Did he land a punch on you in that fight?
Don't think so.
But you mentioned in the cage your hand was you hit him first. How bad is it? Is it feeling a little bit better now, or?
Oscar, do I look like an X-ray machine?
No.
No, I've broke my hands before. I broke both of my hands before. I don't think I broke my hand. Maybe the knuckle. Maybe I broke my knuckle, so it's not too bad.
Are you happy that now this chapter, the Sergey Spivak chapter, is finally closed?
I've put it to bed. The people of Las Vegas and worldwide can rest. It's put to bed.
Mystic Tom, congrats on the victory. You told the Schmo earlier this week you were going to get him with an elbow. You thought it'd be from your back, but you got him standing.
Elbows are sweet, aren't they? Elbows are a brutal thing. Big guy like me throwing elbows towards your face, it's bad news. Any heavyweights throwing elbows, it's going to be damage in it. So, and I know that he keeps his head in the middle a lot, so it's perfect for elbows.
We've yet to see you in a third round in your professional career. Barely any fights in the second round. When your gas tank gets tested, do you think you'll feel extra level of satisfaction? Can't say that word. Satisfied for getting that victory?
I think so, yeah. I've been training with small guys for forever, basically. I bring the big guys into spar, but mainly I train with the small guys, and I can keep up with them guys. So the cardio is there, but I know that doing it in the gym and doing it in the fight is two different things. That's why I want to fight someone like veterans, because they don't just fall over. Do you know what I mean? They're gonna be around. Saying that, Sergey doesn't just fall over either. Do you know what I mean? It was a good shot that I hit him with, but someone like Blagoy or somebody like that, them guys are just durable as hell. So I want to test. I want to see what I'm like. I see these people, these comments and stuff. I try not to read them, but I can't help myself sometimes. And people saying, "Oh, let's see him fight a wrestler." Well, I just fought a wrestler. Let's see how his cardio is. Well, I don't actually know how my cardio is yet. I want to see as well. So let's test it.
And the last question is, do you have enough big bodies in the UK to test you for you to take the next level in the heavyweight division and compete for the championship?
I do not know, but I'm doing well so far. So this camp was a little bit different. I actually paid some guys to come in. I was mixing it up. My brother, he's also a big dude. We do a lot of training in my dad's garage for you American watchers out there. And me and my brother are in a small space and with my dad. And there's a lot of big guys in the gym as well. I've been bringing big guys in to spar, and I've got a good variety of guys over there to train with for sure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tom, are you aware that you won the 50 grand bonus?
I am, and I just cried. And I think it's on camera, so get the views up on that. Make sure you share it.
Do it again so we can get it, please.
Honestly, for anyone who doesn't know, I've got a missus, I've got 3 small kids, and I'm just trying to buy a house, man. Like, I'm just a normal guy. I'm just trying to get by in this world and look after my children and look after my family. I need that money just as much as anybody else. And, man, it's like a dream. I appreciate it so much.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. Are we done? Thank you.
I'm just a normal guy. Tom Aspinall, a normal guy with 4 finishes in a row, brutal finishes in a row to start his UFC career, but reduced to tears or brought to tears, Jeff, by that $50,000 bonus. Good on Aspinall. He said it, man. Whenever a heavyweight throws an elbow, it's going to be bad news. And that's what, Spivak found out tonight. And a good night for the Brits with Paddy Pimblett and Tom Aspinall. What a good night for him. I want to ask you, Jeff. He talked about, possibly fighting Ivanov, but how legit do you see him as being as a contender as we take it here on MMA Weekly YouTube until Brunson comes to the podium and wrap it up here tonight? Brunson victorious over Till in the main event. Jeff, how good is Aspinall in your mind? Where does he fit at the top of that division? If he's getting closer, is he's a top 10 guy? We both talked about that, but where do you see him in the next few fights? Does he have what it takes to make it to the top of the heavyweight division, which is actually loaded even without Jones right now?
I don't know. He's right, though. He has speed, which is something a lot of the heavyweights don't have. And he's got a really good inside game, like up close. There's a lot of people he could beat. There's a lot of people he could beat. But whenever you get to the top, the Cyril Gane and the Francis Ngannou, I think that he might struggle with those guys.
All right, here we go, Jeff. We got
Derek,
Brunson, the main event, 5 in a row for Brunson.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I guess Blonde Brunson is here to stay, 3-0 with the blonde top.
Yeah, absolutely. Blonde Brunson is no mythical character. Yeah, it's here to stay, and we performing well.
Till had said and made a big point a lot about if you tried to take him down, how difficult it was going to be, how much energy you would expend, and it didn't seem to turn out to be that difficult. How was it in the ring? I saw you had the one good takedown defense there, but for the most part, it seemed like you got him down when you wanted to. How did he feel?
Well, that's anybody in the division. It's about taking my time, really setting it up. I wasn't out here lunging for takedowns. I was kind of setting my takedowns up. It was predicating off their striking and overzealousness. So it's just about maturing and focusing on my wrestling in the camp, how to really make it effortless.
In the third round when he hit you with that left hand, how bad was it?
It wasn't that bad, man. I'm like, can everybody shut up? And Darren Till, can you stop swarming me right now? I'm not really that hurt, but whenever a guy think they got you really, really hurt, they're going to, go really strong. But at the same time, I'm trying to bob and weave punches and really slow the onslaught down.
What do you think would be the difference if you mentioned Izzy in the cage, right? What would be the difference this time compared to last time? Obviously it wasn't your best performance the last time out. What do you think you would do different if you saw him now that you've been in there with him once?
Just really, taking my time. This camp I wasn't as sharp as I like to be with the stand-up. My stand-up is a lot better than I was able to show it tonight. I was able to get a few things off on the feet. Came with, uppercut. And I saw some openings, but I like to be sharper. I was injured for the last 3 weeks of this camp. So I think with that time to spar and really prepare, then my stand-up is looking really good, and I can really pose a threat to Izzy on the feet and definitely on the ground.
And just, to get you to comment on Till, when you look at him as a guy in the division, he's got a lot of hype. He's, highly ranked, and yet he's lost 4 out of his last 5. Do you see this guy being a threat if he can make a few adjustments? And do you think that Darren Till is a guy that kind of can do what you did and get things turned around and come back?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel bad for Till. I actually like the guy. I feel he's like a badass kid. Says edgy things on Twitter, Instagram, but I think overall he's a good person. You know what I mean? He's really, really, really funny. So yeah, I think the guy can pull it together. It's small things. He's really explosive, really good on the feet. He has really good feints, very confident. It's just the small things that he need to adjust, Even maybe, thinking about 170 or just maybe fine-tuning some of the wrestling things or some of the defenses, because if he's able to keep it on the feet, he can do a lot better.
And last for me, you said in a cage, you're not broke. But when you mention you're not broke, I think of Jared Cannonier, of course. And it's going to be a while before, they fight and then for you to get in there. So would you consider Cannonier to, because you may not even move up in the rankings, right? You fought somebody below you. You may not move up. Do you feel like if they came to you and said, hey, we want you to fight Cannonier, would you be interested in that or no?
I can use a tune-up with one of the Jake Paul brothers or something. Maybe Dana White will loan me to the Thriller. I can fight one of those guys, or maybe I can wait till Israel and Whitaker fight in early next year and fight in March or April. We have some options. Cannonier isn't completely off the table. I I've been adamant about asking for like the toughest guys in the division, and I asked for Paulo Costa. The UFC sent him a contract. He didn't sign it, you know. So if I would have got that fight, I would have been definitely next for the title. So, you know, I'm doing all this work. I definitely want to be rewarded. I've never got a title shot in my career.
Derek, I just want to follow up on Kevin's question about Darren's ability. Did you know his takedown defense was going to be that good, or did you kind of judge it correctly? How did you even rate his takedown defense?
His takedown defense was okay. You know, he did a good job of digging those underhooks. You know, I got pretty good finishes, you know, with the chain wrestling, like just really attacking. So I can't really say his takedown defense was really bad. I just chained together attacks really good. So, you know, I kind of know what it takes to take somebody down. So, you know, it's some things that he can look back and he can improve on and work on those things and you know, be better for his fights going forward.
I'm just curious, as you said, he can turn things around and climb the rankings, but where would you rank him right now in the middleweight division? Do you think he's just got some holes in his games that are going to make him struggle, or do you think he's as good as some of the other guys?
No, he's as good as some of the other guys. You know, him and Whitaker had a pretty decently close fight. I mean, he dropped Robert Whitaker in their fight, you know. So, yeah, man, they went 5 rounds, and nobody got finished there. You know, I was able to impose my will and get the finish. So you definitely have to take something from that fact that Whitaker's fighting for a title, and his last fight was against Whitaker, and it went 5 rounds. He had some good moments in that fight.
Congrats.
Thank you.
You mentioned having injuries in your camp. I was wondering if you could elaborate that and kind of explain, you know, how that affected your camp and maybe even a little bit in this fight.
Yeah, you know, I had a rib injury. You know, I thought I broke my ribs. Like this, I got kicked in the ribs like really hard with someone's toe. This guy was about 240. So it was kind of like a bad thing, sparring with somebody so heavy when I'm really getting my body down to like my fight weight. I'm getting ready to compete. But yeah, man, I thought I broke my ribs. And, you know, the last 3 weeks to the camp, I couldn't spar. You know, I had to kind of do conditioning, hit pads. I took a whole week off, so I only really had like 2 weeks to prepare, you know. So yeah, it was a little tough, you know, but, you know, that's a part of the fight game. We were confident with what we were doing and kind of, you know, relying on that.
There was no hesitation taking the fight due to that injury?
Yeah, it was close. I mean, it was thought about. It was like, you know, can we push this fight back, or where are we at with this fight? You know, because his injury is pretty bad. You know, it pretty much stopped my training camp. So.
Thank you.
Is that it for Derek Brunson? The winner tonight by submission over Darren Till. He said he had a rib injury that stopped his whole camp as he prepared for this fight. Jim Grieshaber, Jeff Cain, finishing up here live on MMA Weekly, the most trusted source in news and information in mixed martial arts for almost 20 years. Scott Peterson is at the apex of mixed martial arts in Las Vegas on this Labor Day weekend. Always the end of the summer for me as a kid and growing up as a New Englander. And I'll tell you what, man, the beginning of the summer was Memorial Day. The end was Labor Day. The boats came out of the water. Everybody, now the boats are all in the water because the whole place is flooded, Jeff. But at the apex in Vegas, Derek Brunson puts on a show-stopping performance in the main event, closes out the show between he and Aspinall in the co-main in the main event. They closed out the show in style tonight with huge wins over Sergey Spivak and, of course, Darren Till, respectively. And I like Brunson giving Till credit for his takedown defense. I like Brunson talking about the biggest takeaway for me from what Brunson just said. So many times when your advantage is in one area of fighting and one skill set, you tend to neglect that and focus on everything else. I like how much he works on his wrestling right now. Got back to his roots, got back to the basics. Wouldn't you know, he's won 5 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's something that we talked about earlier in the show with, you know, Khabib. You know, and that's what I was so impressed with him is that he never broke away from his wrestling. He knew what got him there. He knew his bread and butter. And we see so many wrestlers try to become strikers and pay the price for it, you know. I think Josh Koscheck's career was derailed way early because he chose to try to strike with people instead of just do his wrestling.
Yeah.
Brunson knows what his bread and butter is, man. And Till's a very dangerous guy. And yeah, I like whenever fighters, I don't like when fighters degrade their opponent because, like, if he comes out and says, well, Darren Till couldn't stop a takedown, you know, and he has no ground game. Well, then you just diminished your own win. You know, I would be the exact opposite. I'd be like, Darren Till was the hardest guy I've ever tried to take down, man. And to hold him there was almost damn near impossible. That's the toughest guy I've ever fought in my life. That's the way I would do it. You know, until the next
But
fight.
Jeff Cain is a master of media for 20 years. Brunson's getting there. He's got a lot of UFC fights under his belt now. But, Jeff, you just heard the questions, and I thought the media did a really good job in Brunson's press conference. who does he want to fight next? He said he could use a tune-up against one of the Paul brothers. So if Dana would let him on a Triller card, you're going to probably get a lot of that from fighters in the UFC after wins these days. But he doesn't seem to be all that excited about a fight with the killer gorilla, Jared Cannonier, who in the rankings at least would seem like his next opponent because, Brunson's a guy who really had to work hard and fight his way back up. He said Paulo Costa didn't sign a contract to fight him. I don't blame Paulo Costa if he didn't take that fight. But he's lost to Whitaker. He's lost to Izzy. Paulo's fighting Vettori. Brunson at 5, Cannonier at 3 makes perfect sense. But like you said, Brunson could wait for a possible title shot with something to happen with Izzy or Rob because, you've had Rob take some time off before, and you never know what happens leading into a title fight like that. And we don't even know when that fight would take place. But you said earlier, if you were Brunson, you'd rather sit and wait than fight the killer gorilla. And I want to see him fight Jared Cannonier. So,
yeah, Cannonier's the fight. I mean, if Paulo wins, then Paulo's right there again. Vettori, if he wins, it does nothing for Vettori. He still fights away from getting back there. Brunson's there, but some things have to fall in place. Some dominoes have to really work out for him. You know what Dana's not going to like is him mentioning Jake and Logan Paul at a UFC press conference. That didn't do him any favors right there, But they'll look past that. I don't know. The more I think about it, I don't think he's going to have a chance to wait because, like you said, we don't know when those fights are going to take place. And whenever I say sitting out and waiting, if the title fight's within 2 or 3 months, man, then yeah, wait. But if we don't know if that fight's happening for 6 months, then you're sitting out for a year, and I don't. That's just too long. So I don't know what Brunson. Brunson's in a weird spot because you don't want to fight anybody below you, and so that only leaves one guy for you to fight. And it's who you want to see him fight.
And it makes sense because Cannonier's a striker, but he's big and strong and tough and huge. And his jiu-jitsu is getting better and better at the MMA lab, coming out of there with John Crouch and Benson Henderson and all those jiu-jitsu guys there. But that for Brunson to get a title shot would have to beat a guy like Cannonier. And Cannonier came out after his last fight, said he's got to fight because he needs the money. So he literally can't afford to sit back and wait for a title opportunity. He's got to take whatever fight comes his way now to stay active and continue, as Dana White likes to say, to fight out his contract. So I'm excited to potentially see that fight, Brunson and Cannonier. And hey, why not put it on the Izzy and Rob card? Why not make it the co-main? So they're all like, I know you're a fan of this, Jeff, keeping guys on the same timeline so that they can start their camps at a perfect time and be lined up for a title shot no matter who wins and who loses.
Yeah, and it sets a clear path. Yeah, I mean, when we talk about other organizations, that's the one thing I really like about PFL. It's a clear path. Like, you know who's fighting next. You just know at the end of this event who the hell's fighting in the next event. And so I like when the UFC does that. They put the co-main event, as the middleweight number one contenders fight, secondary to the middleweight title fight, because then it all lines out and the fans know who's going to be next. And so you're subliminally, in a way, building that fight without people completely realizing it. You get to see them all on the same fight card. And like you brought up, it keeps them on the same time frame. And it lays out the clear path. I just think that it's better that way. Now, I understand. Been in the fight game for a minute. Things don't work out. People get injured. People start getting mad about contracts, personal life. Just all kinds of shit goes down to keep a fight from happening. But I think that Brunson relatively is unscathed. He could fight again soon. But I agree with what you're talking about on that middleweight. I would put that as the co-main event to Whitaker and Izzy. The only way that fails is if Whitaker wins, because if Whitaker wins, you have to have a trilogy. Izzy's too popular for not to do that. You have to have.
If it's a violent early finish, maybe it's not right away. Maybe it's not the next fight, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Because look like they didn't give it to Stipe. Stipe got left out. Didn't even get in the interim fight, which, we can talk about the disrespect and the shade that they've thrown at Stipe.
Wow.
They practically had his face off the top of the poster for the Ngannou rematch. For some reason, they do not like Stipe. And I think I'm safe to say that, or maybe not safe, but accurate. I don't know if you're ever safe saying anything like that. But Brunson puts on a show. We'd like to see him fight Cannonier. We got, Lionheart, Smith, and Spann coming up. You got the Volkanovski-Ortega card. Lauren Murphy has looked great lately. She's got Valentina. And then you've got the return of Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler. But maybe the fight that I'm looking forward to the most, and you've got Thiago Santos and Johnny Walker coming up. October 9th, man, no one's talking about this one. Mackenzie Dern and Marina Rodriguez at strawweight. the two strawweights that are surging right now. And you've got Rose and Wei Lee coming up in November in New York City at Madison Square Garden, and that's the rematch. And everybody's talking about maybe it should be Joanna and Wei Lee to see who gets the fight against Rose, but it's not. You've got Joanna out there. But who's hotter, and I don't mean physically, who's hotter in terms of the role that they're on in the octagon right now, Marina Rodriguez or Mackenzie Dern? Nobody's on a bigger role than either one of those two. They both seem to be putting it together to make a title run, and they're on a collision course for October 9th right now. Other than the big fights that everybody's talking about, that's the one that I can't wait to see.
Yeah, that's a huge fight, and that's a good fight. Up and comers and people who have a lot of hype. I was kind of surprised that Woodley got the rematch. It had been so long. I was like, why wouldn't you just do Carla Esparza? Like, Carla Esparza beat Rose for the title. Why wouldn't you
what?
do that?
Colin
rematch
said the same thing last week. Carla Esparza,
Yeah.
but I'm see like there's already Joanna's there though. You got Wei Lee and Joanna and Rose, and it's like, man, you talk about a logjam. Strawweight's packed in the women's side.
Well, I think with Carla, if she were to beat Rose, which I would not pick her to, then she's going to get starched by Woodley or Joanna, right? And then Rose is right back in there. So I don't know. Look, I understand. Rose completely kicked the crap out of Woodley, but it was quick knockout, and it was for the title. I mean, I get running it
literally
back,
with a kick,
really. Yeah. I mean, I don't like running back fights like that. Woodley got kicked in the head and knocked out. And early in a fight. I feel like she has to fight a Joanna or something. And plus, Joanna and her were fight of the year. That was one of the greatest fights in combat sports history.
Man.
So
that was the one. If you guys are trying to remember, where Joanna's face looked like the Elephant Man. If you ever saw that movie back in the day, and people were all over the world, people were trying to put it up as an example of why women shouldn't fight. And Stephen A. Smith must have been happy somewhere. The women should fight. Exactly,
I felt
man.
like
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I just felt like everything was lined up. You got Joanna and Woodley, fight of the century, going to rematch. And then Carla, who holds the win over Rose in a championship fight, she's going to get to fight Rose again. Now, I think Carla's the weakest one out of those four, right? I don't want to sleep on Carla, though. Carla's a very good wrestler. And when she gets on top of you, she is hard to deal with. But I feel like all three of those women are going to outstrike Carla, and outside of a submission or something weird happening, they're probably going to beat her. But Carla had this window, and she's earned it. She's earned it. Let her have her shot. Because now I don't know that she ever gets close to that title fight again. Because if she's going to have to fight somebody to get there again, and it's going to be a Woodley or a Joanna. We already saw what Joanna did to Carla, right? When Carla beat Rose to get the title, Joanna came in there and made Carla look like she didn't deserve to be in the sport at all.
Maybe that's the fight to do is Esparza and Joanna, but Joanna's waiting for the Zhang and rightfully so, I think, would be waiting for the winner of Zhang and Thug Rose. But look at the fights that are coming up, man. That Rodriguez and Mackenzie Dern, you've got Smith and Spann, you've got Volkanovski, Ortega, and that Brian Ortega, he's got a big height advantage. I can't wait to see those two go at it with Nick Diaz coming back and Valentina and Murphy, and also on that card, Jessica Andrade and Cynthia Calvillo, Curtis Blades and Jairzinho Rosenstrike, Dan Hooker's on that card, Marlon Moraes and Davishvili's on that card. You've got Santos and Walker, Dern Rodriguez. You've got you got Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira, and then UFC 268. Think about that one. And by the way, on the Jan Teixeira card, you've got the rematch between Sterling and Petr Yan. And there's a debate right now in the UFC, which champion is more unworthy, Oliveira or Aljamain Sterling. And look what happened in that fight with Sterling and Yan. And then Oliveira, a lot of people don't think he's a champion. You're going to probably have him and Poirier thrown in there somewhere soon. But then you've also got Usman Covington 2. You've got Thug Rose and Zhang. You got Gaethje and Chandler, and Strickland and Rockhold on the same card. Frankie Edgar, Marlon Vera, Ally Quinta, Bobby Green. The next 60 days are loaded with so many great fights. I can't wait. I mean, we're like kids in a candy store getting to do these shows.
Yeah, look, it gets crazy. These summer months, we get a lot of these fight night cards, and then boom, we hit fall and shit hits the fan. Outside of the international fight weeks that usually takes place in July, it's just that it's been thrown off the last couple of years, But outside of that, the summer's usually, that's the big event in the summer. And then The biggest fight cards happen in the fall and the winter, and then in January. And so I'm looking forward to this fall, man. You're talking about heating up. Holy shit. And those are all good matchups.
Misha
all
Tate's
those
coming
are good
back.
matchups.
One
And
more that I
Lauren
forgot,
Murphy,
Jeff. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
while I think Lauren Murphy's going to get beat down, Lauren Murphy may be the toughest female fighter in the world. Now, I'm not talking about skill set, although she is a very talented fighter. But she's going to take a beating. She's not going to quit. You know what I mean?
Right.
That girl
like a Holloway,
is
a Holloway Cater beating, or like a what do you think? Like,
I think she's going to take a Carla Esparza, Joanna type of beating.
Okay.
But she's tougher. She's tough, man. She's one of the toughest women in the world, period. She's not an easy out for anybody. She never gives up. You know, she could be, she'll be on her deathbed and still throwing punches. It's just crazy. She's a different animal. She's a different animal than Valentina's faced before. Although I think Valentina's faced better fighters. Clearly, she's fought Nunes twice. But that's a fun fight, man. And if Valentina sleeps on Murphy even a little bit, people could make a lot of money on an upset in that fight because Murphy is tough as nails. She's gritty and she knows what she has to do. She doesn't deviate from game plans. She doesn't get, adversity doesn't bother her. That's a fight that I'm looking really forward to because I think that it's one of those fights that if ever Valentina was going to look past someone, it might be now. And man, I hope not, because Lauren Murphy is the last person you want to look past, Maybe not the last,
when
but
you
she's
look
up there.
at Valentina's been finishing everybody. I mean, Liz Carmouche went the distance with her. Jennifer Maia went the distance with her. And I think Murphy's tougher than both of them. Meanwhile, Jeff, one fight I left off there, and I don't know why I keep freaking forgetting about this. Maybe it's because I don't want to see either one of these guys anywhere near a live microphone. October 23rd, I do want to see them in the octagon, and I can't wait to watch this fight. Marvin Vettori and Paulo Costa, the Eraser. One of them will be erased from title contention that night.
Boy, I think we're going to see Vettori go back to wrestling real quick.
He needs
real
to.
quick.
But Paulo's a monster, dude. Paulo's so strong,
God.
and he's jiu-jitsu is great. Paulo, I've seen him wrestle. So, man, Vettori and Costa, to me, that almost might be the fight I'm looking forward to the most. You got so many of them. I couldn't pick one with Ortega and Volko, and
I like
just
that
thinking about
fight.
that, it's crazy.
Yeah, because that was built up on the Ultimate Fighter, and we got to see it play out all year and the animosity and just how Ortega gets under his skin, and they're just total different personalities. Man, that's a. There's so many good fights. I wish Paulo Costa hadn't have said all that stupid crap because I think, man, I like watching Paulo fight. Paulo is a beast, but he just rubbed me wrong on that whole wine stuff.
That was it was too much, man. And then when he pulled himself out of the Whitaker fight, I mean, that was a fight that I thought Paulo Costa could have won and legitimately beaten Whitaker and put himself back in good graces with the company and with the fans. Not that, necessarily that's the number one thing here. A win or two and everybody forgets what happened. There's been a lot of fighters who have said some things and done some things that
we've got short memories.
You get a chance to win and you get a couple of wins back. To me, when shit like that goes down, if I were a guy like him, I'd want to get back in there right away. Number one, to fight as quickly as I can and fight those fights off my contract, but win them so then I make a lot more money because that's the only way you're going to do it. People don't understand and for some reason got bad advice. You're not going to make the money you want to make in the UFC until you win big fights and do it convincingly to build up your fan base. Look at Charles Oliveira. Nobody wants to fight him. He's the champion. Nobody thinks he's a legit champ. I happen to think he's completely illegitimate as the champ, but because of the way he won it, not because of his skills. Because they put him and Michael Chandler in his second UFC fight ahead of Poirier and Gaethje. I think Gaethje's
I had a
Poirier
bigger
and
problem
Gaethje
with Chandler
were the top
being
two
in
people
there.
in that division. But the point is, no one wants to fight Oliveira, Jeff, because no one knows who he is. It's not a money fight. You've got to build your name up with big wins against big fighters and violent finishes. Costa does that, he's going to get his money.
Well, I mean, with Oliveira, he was down. Nobody wanted to fight Oliveira before because that's too tough of a fight. Unless it's for a title. You don't want to take that fight unless there's a lot. You're going to benefit a lot from it. I had a much bigger problem with Michael Chandler getting the title shot than I did Oliveira. Oliveira had been in the UFC forever. He was on that long win streak. And I was like, who the hell is Michael Chandler you just got beat in Bellator and you're going to jump over here. And so I agree with everything Gaethje says about that. Oliveira, he was there. I mean, in reality, what happens? The UFC messed up with Conor McGregor and Poirier, and so it's made a whole mockery of the top of that division. And the UFC didn't have a good out any way they did it. If they had a time machine, they'd go back and make Poirier and McGregor the title fight. But they didn't do that because they were waiting on friggin' Khabib, and we know how the whole story played out. That was just a misstep all the way around for everybody. Oliveira benefited, though. Oliveira definitely benefited. Yeah, and Oliveira's a tough fight. He's a tough fight. I mean, there's no, that him and Poirier is going to be a friggin' good fight. Oliveira, people kind of sleep on his kicks and stuff, because he's known as a submission fighter. He's got really good kicks in there. And so we're going to see how that fight plays out. And then we're going to see how people, react to Oliveira if he wins or if he loses. If he loses, he should have never been champion. If he wins, do people give him the credit? We'll see. We'll see about that, man. But there's
Poirier's
tons of fights coming
peaking. Poirier's peaking as an MMA fighter right now. He's unbelievable. What Poirier's video, and people just want to write Conor off like it was. No, that was Poirier's greatness more than it was Conor's weakness. Because, I mean, you look at Poirier rocked Khabib. He had a choke in on Khabib, came very close, very closer than you think. And Khabib gave him a lot of credit and talked about him being the best in the world. And Khabib does not say those things or take those things lightly. So Poirier, to me, is the best in the world in that division. Oliveira is going to get a huge chance because now that Poirier is a big star and his hot sauce is in every store in America and he's becoming a celebrity and he's at the Jake Paul fight hanging out with Jesse Isler and all those guys, Poirier's stock and his name have gone way up. That's a fight where Oliveira can build his name and his brand. And he's a likable dude, Oliveira. He has trouble with English, but he's kind of funny. He's got the hair. He's a dude who could actually do really well building his name. So I'm looking
and he's fun to watch.
Look, Oliveira could go out there and crush Poirier. He's got it in him to do it. And then everybody's talking about him as a legitimate champ. But his name goes up. He's making money. And no one's not fighting him anymore to go take a money fight rather than fight for the belt, which, as Gaethje said, and rightfully so, it cheapens the belt. That belt was prestigious when Khabib had it. And look, they already let Conor make a mockery out of it before then. So now that belt is in that position, like Justin Gaethje said, to where people don't think it's legitimate. A win over Poirier, especially a decisive win over Poirier, and Oliveira is right at the top of the pound-for-pound list. He's right there and building up his name and making money. And then you get Gaethje and Chandler fighting each other, and then the winner would get the winner of that. So my dream scenario as a fan would be to see the rematch of a fight from April of 2018 when I was 10 feet away and they slugged it out for, I think, into the fourth round. Gaethje and Poirier back and forth in the main event in Arizona, Glendale in 2018. I've thought all along they're the two best guys in the division. So I'd like to see Poirier beat Oliveira. I'd like to see Gaethje beat Chandler, and I want to see the rematch.
You want to know what I think is going to happen? I think that the mockery of this division hasn't played completely out yet. I think Poirier and Oliveira fight, and I think Poirier wins that fight. And then
don't
Conor
tell me, no,
and,
please, no.
Yep.
Oh,
Conor's going to fight for the title, coming off 2 losses.
I'm then it's going to be what? Oh, Justin Gaethje might literally wait in the parking lot with a mask and jump Dana White if that happens.
If I were Gaethje, I'd prepare myself mentally for that to go down because I think that's where they're headed, and it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It's a travesty for everybody in that friggin' division. But I think that's what they're going to do. And people complain. They don't care. We all complain about
I want to see Conor Diaz 3, though. What if they just keep Conor out of the title picture and put him at 170 against Diaz again?
Yeah, you could definitely do that. I don't know. It's risky, because we're talking about, money fights and everything. At the end of the day, Conor and Poirier is the biggest money fight. It's the biggest money fight, maybe in the promotion.
Isn't he about a year away? Conor's about 8 months to a year away, right? No,
I don't know. I don't know. How long has it been? Because it just takes 6 weeks for it to heal, and then I wouldn't be kicking with it for a minute, but I think it probably will. I don't know. When's Poirier?
He's gonna have to stick the other foot in his mouth, Jeff, because that one's not ready yet.
I just can't see the UFC bringing Conor back to fight someone, paying him what they're going to have to pay him, unless it's a Nate Diaz or for the title. Unless, Masvidal or whatever, but you're running a huge risk. you're running a huge risk. And then Dana kind of alluded to it. They were like, what do you do? And he's like, well, I think he heals up and we give him a rematch. And I'm just like,
I've always thought Conor would knock Masvidal out. I've always thought Conor would knock him out. If they just stand and throw and Masvidal says, hey, I'm just going to stand and trade, I thought Conor would knock him out.
I agree.
Always.
I agree. Connor's the better striker
isn't gonna like
of the
that
two.
very much, but sorry, George. Love you, buddy.
Yeah.
But I don't see him beating Conor on the feet. I just don't.
No, I think you might see Masvidal go to his AT&T jiu-jitsu on that fight. I think it's his best chance of wins. Try to take Conor down. But yeah, I agree. Conor's a better striker than Jorge. But I think that I really do, and I hope it don't. I hope it don't, because it doesn't matter what happens in Poirier and Chandler. If Poirier beats Chandler, the title is restored its dignity. If Poirier beats Oliveira, and then if Oliveira beats Poirier, legitimacy.
Same thing.
If you bring Conor, but if you bring Conor back to fight, there's no friggin' legitimacy there. Especially if Conor wins that. Then you got Gaethje over here going, what the hell's going on? When does the number 2 guy get to fight for the belt? I mean,
that fight is the one we've wanted all along, though. Gaethje and Chandler in New York on this. That's the co-main. And why the heck is that not 5 rounds? Like, both the Diaz brothers can come back and get a co-main that's 5 rounds, but we can't have a 5-round Gaethje and Chandler fight. I mean, that one probably
he didn't want it.
3. Man,
go in Gaethje's interview with ESPN's Nakamoto. He said that why would I take a 5-round fight? They offered me a 3. Yeah, why, for the same money, you want me to go 2 more rounds? I'd take it 3, and I'm like, I get that.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that, but I'm really
what
looking
I'd
forward
like
to
to
those
see.
fights, man.
What I want to see
Jeff.
is Conor come back and fight Gaethje, the winner of Gaethje and Chandler. That's what I want to see.
Conor Gaethje would be a war. Conor Masvidal, Conor Diaz, those are somewhere in there as Conor's next fight. Meanwhile, all the other fights coming up, the belt most likely to change hands, I think, is obviously Jan and Sterling. It has to be, right? Thinking about their first fight and how Sterling won and the way that fight was going, that would be almost, if you're going to put a gun to my head and say your kids die unless you pick the winner of an upcoming title fight, who's going to lose their belt first, I'd say that Sterling would be.
One.
And sorry, Funkmaster, I love you, but I mean, that was a one-sided fight if I've ever seen one.
And look, I agree with what Funkmaster's saying. He won the title. He didn't do anything wrong. People need to stop acting like he did something wrong.
Jan was a moron.
Yeah, he didn't do anything wrong. And so why are people going crazy on him? There's going to be a rematch. It's set, and either fate justifies what happened in the last fight or not.
So what about a champion, Jeff?
The second champion to change hands?
Oliveira?
It might be Ngannou. It might be Ngannou.
Okay, Namajunas, I would put
it could be
up there.
Yeah, I would put Rose up there. Yeah, I would put Rose. Yeah, I like Rose's the way she matches up with Woodley, though. I like the way she does.
I'm going to give you mine. Can I give you mine right now? The champion most likely to lose besides Sterling, and I'm going to call it right now. And I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a one-sided fight. I'm going with Brian T-City Ortega to smash Volkanovski. He's got the size. I think he's going to grapple him. I think he's going to submit him. And I believe Brian Ortega, that's a great matchup for him in that fight against Volko. I'm going to be shocked if Brian Ortega loses that fight. I'll go that far.
I just don't. The thing about that with me is I don't think Ortega can stand out there and strike with Volkanovski. Now, he doesn't have to. He's got a better skill set than that. And if he can get that fight to the ground, then oh shit, things got real fast. I don't know. I don't know. But I say this: watching The Ultimate Fighter, Ortega has Volkanovski where he's gonna pressure him, which is going to allow takedowns to happen. And so I think that T-City's done a really good job of laying the road work, laying the map out to give him the best chance of winning. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think that, of course, Sterling is going to be the one probably to do it. And I think Rose was a good bet. And then, I think Izzy keeps it. I think Izzy keeps it.
I'm going to tell you one thing.
I don't know.
Belt...
ahead, Izzy and Whitaker, man, that's a fucking real fight. That's, I don't know, man. That's crazy.
That's probably the one I'm looking forward to the most besides Ngannou and Gane. I'd say Ngannou and Gane is number one for me. But I also am really looking forward to seeing Rose and Wei Li. I think that's a great fight. Valentina and Amanda, it's usually one-sided. Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington too. I don't think people have given Colby enough credit for the way he performed in the first one, and this will be the toughest title defense of Kamaru Usman's reign, in my opinion. I think that is going to be a tough, tough night for him, win or lose. And the champion, I think, is most likely to win in a cakewalk, and I'm sorry to do this to my guy Glover, but you know what, man? I mean, I think Jan Blachowicz easily smashes Glover Teixeira and keeps that belt at light heavyweight. And you know, you want to root for the feel-good story and what Glover's had to do to get back there, the fights he's had to win. Man, I'll tell you what, I really feel like that's an easier win for him. And then, you know, you still have John Jones out there. Where is Jones going to end up? I mean, this whole thing has become a joke.
He's going to end up fighting Logan Paul. Holy hell.
Oh, more! I can see the Paul brothers now. This is more money than Jones made in his whole UFC career. One fight.
And Jones would jump all over that. If he could just get out of his UFC contract, he would jump all over that.
He's a lot heavier than Logan Paul, though. A lot heavier.
Oh, yeah. I know. I'm just saying. I was just throwing that out there kind of jokingly.
Okay, so how about this, Jeff? Non-title fight. Which fight are you looking forward to the most? Rodriguez and Mackenzie Dern is a good one for me. Mine is, I think, Strickland and Rockhold, because I want to see how good Strickland is, and I love watching Luke Rockhold get punched.
Yeah, you know, I'm interested in that because it's been so long since we've seen Rockhold. Has he made any improvements, or has he just been out there surfing? Because, like, I know everybody, and look, I'm not the biggest fan of Rockhold either, but Rockhold has a very unique skill set that's freaking dangerous. He just doesn't seem to take a punch very well, you know. But you get
in his defense, Blachowicz hits like a truck, man. That was a tough go for him at 205.
Yeah.
And who knew that Jan was about to start a title run? No one knew that then, but he got depleted by Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah. I mean, but you can ask Weidman. You know, Rockhold, you give him a shot. Woo,
yeah.
That guy can hurt you. I think that he looked past Bisping. I know that, you know, that was kind of a crazy thing that went down, but I think he looked past Bisping a little bit. And Vitor, that's TRT Vitor, man. TRT Vitor was beating the shit out of everybody.
TRT Vitor's back next week. TRT Vitor's back. But I want to ask you this before we transition to next week's show, which is Trillator. But for us, I look at this. Okay, last thing I want to ask you. It's the one fight we haven't talked about really, and it's the one that a lot of people are most excited about. To me, I don't know how competitive either guy is going to be because I just don't know. I haven't seen Robbie Lawler in forever, and it's literally been forever since we've seen Nick Diaz. What's your interest level on that one, and do you think it's even going to be a good fight?
I mean, I was at the first fight, and you know, it's a Legends fight. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm not super excited about it, but I want to see how Nick Diaz looks after all this time, and if Robbie Lawler's got one more in him, you know. But let's be honest, Robbie Lawler loses that fight. That's it for Robbie Lawler. He's retired out. And you know, look, the spectacle of Nick Diaz, you know, it's like we talked about earlier with Jake Paul. I like that. You know, I don't know if he's going to show up at a friggin' press conference or not. You know, and if he does show up, God, I don't know what the hell he's going to say, or even if I'm going to understand it, or if it's going to make sense, or even be the answer to the question.
Right.
I kind of like that stuff.
You like it. If you're an OG, though, you're going to love it, Jeff. We had a lot fewer grays. In fact, we probably didn't have any grays the last time these guys fought. It was so long ago.
So, I'm looking forward to that because Nick Diaz is a huge draw. You know, when we talk about money fights, Nick Diaz is a money fight. And it's just interesting to see how he looks after all this time. But look, he's helping Nate train for all of those fights. You know, so I have no reason to believe that Nick's out of shape.
Same here.
And so I don't know how that's going to play out. If I'm Robbie, I'm unloading my punches early and big, because you're not going to go the distance with Nate or Nick and win. And so you got to put him out there early.
If he takes you down, you're toast. You're done if he takes you down.
Just launch bombs from the beginning, man, and see how it works out for you. It didn't work out for you last time. That's sort of your game plan the first time around, and it didn't work out. But I think the longer that fight goes, the better it is for Diaz. I think Nick wins that fight unless Nick's just gotten way out of shape or something that I don't know about. But I feel like Nate's going to win. I mean, I'm looking forward to that fight. It's nostalgic. It's old school. It's Legends. It's meaningless, though. You know, it's kind of meaningless unless it just puts Nick on a path to fight. I don't know who.
these are two warriors who I've loved from day one in there, and nobody can ever question the heart or the guts or the determination or the skill of either one of those guys. They're older now and they're toward the tail end, and Diaz hasn't fought in forever. But when I think of Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler, those are two of the guys I respect the most in the history of the sport. So that's one thing for real fans.
They're
who have
real
been around
fighters
for a long time to get a chance to see that, regardless. And it's not like they're 45, 50 years old either. I mean, this could still be a very entertaining fight. So I'm looking forward to that. There's so many huge fights coming up, Jeff. We'll be live here for all of them on MMA Weekly. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube, hit that bell, and follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. The website's out of control bananas right now with the job that Jeff and Hunter and everybody are doing. But, Jeff, before we get out of here, we have Trillator next week, and I'm sure Ryan Kavanaugh is going to love that, and so will Scott Coker. But, hey, it's Vitor Belfort, it's Evander, the real heel, Holyfield, and then you've got Anderson Silva and Tito Ortiz. So we will be here for this Carnival show next week on MMA Weekly YouTube, streaming live. What are your thoughts to get fans ready and whet their appetite for our live stream next week?
Anderson Silva's going to box Tito Ortiz. That's and I don't know.
Scary
it's hard
for Tito.
I don't think it looks good for Tito, and we'll see how Vitor looks, man. I mean, Vitor's always had fast hands and a hell of a lot of power. He's a dangerous, dangerous man.
You said Vitor's going to win earlier in the show. You said he's going to beat the hell out of Holyfield. You still feel that way?
Yeah. I feel like Holyfield's going to be walking in quicksand.
How embarrassing would that be for Evander Holyfield to go out like that?
I think it'd be bad.
Holyfield's going to have kind of shape. He must have been training to take this fight with a week to go. 10 days when De La Hoya got COVID.
Yeah, they've been talking about that Tyson fight, and so maybe Holyfield was smart and started getting in shape, because that's a big money fight, and it's not something that he wants to lose. And so maybe he's in shape. But if he's not in shape, man, I feel like Vitor is going to be in shape. It's what Vitor does. Every day Vitor is working out. His social media is workout. Every day he's like GSP. That's who he is. That's what he does. And so he's going to be in shape. And Vitor is one of those guys that's always put together combinations. And so it could be bad for Holyfield. And huge. I mean, just think how funny that would be to see Vitor knock out Holyfield and then the MMA community act like fools, as a reaction to Jake Paul beating all these MMA guys. It's such a good storyline that boxing stumbled on, though, and it's good for both sports. It really is.
I can get rid of the Paul brothers once and for all. Anderson Silva will get rid of the Paul brothers. It could be a handicap match, a handicap tag team, Paul brothers tagging in and out against the Spider. But Jeff, I can't wait for next week to see what Silva does to Tito and to see what happens with Vitor. And Vitor, I did an interview with him over the summer, or maybe a little earlier than that, and I'm going to dig up some of that because he's been at the forefront of mixing the two sports, some kind of mix of boxing and MMA. He talked about it earlier this week in one of the interviews I saw, and he talked to me about it months ago. He's wanting to champion and pioneer a new sport that combines boxing and MMA, and that might be where we're headed with these Triller fights and all these things that are going on. So it'll be interesting for you. I'll dig some of this up and throw it up on MMA Weekly's Instagram this week.
Yeah,
so you can see what Vitor has to say about it, because it was pretty fascinating stuff. Smart guy.
Yeah,
Vitor,
I know what he
smart.
said. He wants to use the smaller gloves, and he wants to allow punches and dirty boxing on the inside. So I can hold
That's
your
one
head
way to
more.
get rid of the Paul brothers.
That is one way to get rid of the Paul brothers. Where they're going to have a problem with that is that there's no rule set and there's no commission to do it, and so it's going to take a minute. Where they're going to have to come up with a set of rules and try to get that adopted by athletic commissions, or they're not going to sanction the fights. But basically, it's a Muay Thai fight without kicks and knees. That's what it is. When I listen to Vitor talk about it, and you just water it down to what he's really saying, he's saying a Muay Thai fight with no kicks or knees. And I'm down.
All right, well, Vitor's the favorite. Minus 175 early favorite, and that is on September 11th. Not sure what time we're going to be on next Saturday. Make sure you follow the website all week for coverage on MMA Weekly, the YouTube, the Instagram, the Facebook. Subscribe to all of our channels. We love you here today in the chat. Hit that bell so you know when we're coming on. And, Jeff, a good night for Derek Brunson and for Tom Aspinall. Your final thoughts before we wrap it up and they play us off the stage with Scott Peterson wants to get going from the Apex up in Vegas.
Till is a tough dude. Props to Brunson, and in Aspinall, I'm really looking forward to seeing how plays this run out. And we can't forget Paddy. Paddy made his UFC debut and did so in impressive fashion.
No doubt. I'm going to give my final thought and say next week we come one step closer to the destruction of mankind and the ruination of Western civilization with another Trillator card that we will stream live next week with Vitor Belfort, the favorite over Evander Holyfield in a boxing match, and Anderson Silva and Tito Ortiz. For Jeff Cain and everyone here at MMA Weekly, guys, I'm Jim Grieshaber saying thanks for being with us. Keep your game tight and your mind right, fight fans. We are out.
Oh,